Mr. Mayor, we are ready when you are.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started with the Tempe City Council regular council meeting on Thursday, December 3rd. The time is now 7:23 p.m. Once again, we apologize for a little bit of lateness here, but last meeting of the calendar year, and there's a lot of items we have to get to and a lot of business. So once again, due to concerns over exposure to the coronavirus, the city has implemented measures to protect our community, including the closing of council chambers and limiting public attendance to electronic means only. Members of the public may view the live meeting proceedings on Tempe Channel 11 or attend the meeting virtually through Cisco WebEx events by visiting tempe.gov/clerk for more information. Item number 1 is the moment of silence. If we can take a second to have a moment of silence. Thank you so much. Item number 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll go ahead and get started here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up for the meeting minutes, I'm going to be assisted tonight by Councilmember Arredondo Savage. Councilmember Arredondo Savage.
Right on. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move approval of item 3A, 1 and 2.
Great. It's been moved by Councilmember Arredondo Savage. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Cubie. I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call vote here. Councilmember Navarro. Councilmember Navarro.
Aye.
Councilmember Cubie.
Aye.
Councilmember Garland.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating.
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage.
Aye.
And Councilmember Adams. Councilmember Adams. All right. That motion is approved 6-0 with Councilmember Adams absent. Next up, we have item 3B.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I apologize. I couldn't get to my button in time.
Okay.
Yes, I'm in favor. So
I will go back then and amend that. Then that motion passes unanimously 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize.
No problem. Next up, we've got item 3B, acceptance of board, commission, and committee meeting minutes. Councilmember Arredondo Savage.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the acceptance of item 3B, 1 through 13.
Great. It's been moved by Councilmember Arredondo Savage. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Garland. I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call vote here. Councilmember Navarro.
Aye.
Councilmember Cubie.
Aye.
Councilmember Garland.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating.
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage. Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. That item passes 7-0. Next up, we have mayor's reports and announcements. I just wanted to note, City of Tempe Board, Commission, and Committee reappointments and new appointments. There are actually several reappointments and new appointments to the city's boards, commissions, and committees, as outlined in item 5A1 on the agenda. So I just wanted to say thank you very much and congratulations to those who've been reappointed and to the new people who are serving on our boards and commissions. We really appreciate your time and your commitment, and just thank you so much for being willing to serve.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to take a minute just to salute you, because I'm looking over the boards and commission recommendations. It reflects such diversity in our community and expertise and passion and commitment. And I think you've taken a good look and tried to make the commissions and boards more representative of our city and look like our city, frankly. So thank you so much for moving that way.
Thank you, Councilmember Cubie. I really appreciate it. All right, next up here, appears. I am looking for a document here. Hold on one second here. While I look for that document, I'm going to go ahead and go to item 4B, and I'll come back. City Manager's reports and announcements. Small business grant update, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We have a brief presentation tonight on the Small Business Grant Program. I believe that Jill Buschbacher from Economic Development is going to give that presentation.
Jill, if you're speaking, your mic is muted.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Jill.
Do you hear me now? Thank
Yes.
you. This is Jill Buschbacher with Economic Development. Thank you, Mayor and members of council, for the opportunity to speak about this program. The Small Business Grant Program was approved by council, you all in August of this year. And if you'll go to the next slide, please. I'm sorry, my slides don't appear to be advancing properly. Give me a moment here. Can you go to the second slide, please? Greg, are you able to advance the slides? Thank you.
Jill,
So you all approved this program. I'm sorry, can you all hear me and see this now?
Yes, Jill, we're on the second slide
Yes.
with background and criteria. Go ahead and proceed.
I'm sorry, I was having a delay, excuse me. Having some technical difficulties. So thanks for your generosity in approving funds for this program. You approved 1.13 million back in August of this year. We contracted with our partners at Arizona Community Foundation to help us administer the program. And the application period was a 3-week period from October 12th through the 30th. Our small businesses, as you know, have taken a tough hit during this time, and this money has been really tremendously helpful to them. These grants that were awarded to them were up to $10,000, and they were based on their employee count, and the primary criteria were that they had less than 100 employees, under 5 million in gross annual receipts, and they'd been in business for about a year. And this applied to the most impacted industries based on the best data that we had. I'll get into what those industries were in just a moment. The approximate total amount awarded was $1,094,100. The total applicants in the end ended up being 226. These were estimated numbers based on the best data that we had when we submitted this presentation. We've adjusted a couple of them, and some of them are even better, so we're happy to report that. We awarded 159 applicants, and the average grant award was about $6,800. Women and minority-owned businesses were awarded actually at an even better rate of about 43% when we combined those. And about a third of the folks that were awarded did not answer those demographic questions, so it may have even been higher than that. So in that regard, I want to thank our partners at Rail CDC, a nonprofit that serves minority-owned businesses in Mesa and Tempe. They partnered with us to do some additional outreach, which we greatly appreciated and feel that the program really benefited from, so that we could make sure that this reached a wide variety of our business community and all folks had equal opportunity. So we're very pleased with those results. I talked about the industries that were most impacted in our community during this time, and those were the ones that folks were required to be a part of in order to qualify for the grant. This is how that shook out. So that 47% for accommodations and food services, just to give you a little more explanation, was primarily restaurants and bars. And there was one, I believe, small hotel that also qualified. And then if you're wondering what healthcare and social assistance means, that's childcare centers, caregiving centers, small doctors or other types of medical services. Retail trade, obviously, we all know has been very impacted, and so we were very pleased to see them apply and be awarded funds in this program. And manufacturing, although some parts of manufacturing have prospered during this time, others have not. For example, those that were involved in anything to do with commercial aviation and so on. So just that's something to take note of. Arts, entertainment, and recreation, that category included, yoga studios and arts organizations. There was a dance academy that was able to receive an award. Those are the kinds of organizations that got this in that category. And then administrative support, waste management and remediation, that's kind of a government term. Obviously, these categories are defined and used by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But that particular category, for example, included some companies that provide printing and copying services or provided environmental cleanup, those kinds of things. Personal care services is one of the main areas under other services that obviously those businesses have been greatly impacted during this time, and many of them were impacted by the shutdowns. So they were very pleased to take part in this program as well. And I'll just give you a little bit more information about the program, some additional stats. 29% of the awardees were women-owned businesses, which equated to 46 companies. 25% were minority-owned businesses. 29% women-owned businesses, 25% minority-owned businesses. That equated to 39 businesses. And if you combine those, because some of those were both minority-owned and both minorities and women, it was 69 companies, which made for 43% of our applicants, or awardees rather, were either women or minority-owned. I want to also give a quick thank you to our partners that helped develop the program and help promote it, so that we had a tremendous response to it and the grants got out to the right folks in the community. Tempe Tourism, DTA, Tempe Chamber, Local First, SBDC, SBA, those were all important partners for us, and of course Rail CDC, and getting the word out and helping to get folks to apply for this program. And I'd like to thank the staff in the other departments that helped get this done quickly and efficiently in the budget office, in accounting, in procurement. They were all extremely helpful and all on board, and everyone worked together to help our business community. So thank you for this time. And I'll yield back to the city manager for other comments on this program.
Thank you, Jill. Mr. Mayor, members of council, one other thing that we wanted to note as part of this presentation is that there is, we believe that in order to continue to have this program be successful, that there would be an additional $175,000 that would be transferred from other programs within the budget that is already accessed by economic development. It's not an inter-department budgetary transfer, so according to our legal advice that we've received, we can do this administratively. But I wanted to let you know that we were doing that from other programs that didn't have the same kind of respond to need that this program did. So in order to fund the continuing need, we were going to go ahead and do that. Happy to get your feedback about that, and if there's any concerns, we'll certainly hear those today. That's all I had, and certainly I know that Jill is happy to answer any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Jill. Really appreciate the presentation. I'm totally comfortable with that. Any other council members have any feedback or comments, questions? Let's see, Councilmember Adams.
Comfortable with it too. I think it's a really valuable program and would like to see it continue.
Thank you. Councilmember Cubie.
I'm comfortable with that as well. I just had a quick question for Jill. Thank you, Jill, for the fulsome presentation. People that were denied, was it because they didn't qualify, because they were over 100 employees or under a year? I mean, what were the reasons why they were denied? Was it mostly just not qualifying?
Jill, are you still there?
I think, I'm sorry, the question was garbled, but I think what I heard was the question from Councilwoman Kuby was, what were the primary reasons some of the folks were denied?
That's
Is
correct.
that correct?
Yes.
That's right.
Okay. So either they did not submit complete documentation, or they were not within the primary eligibility requirements, such as they had more than 100 employees, or they had more than 5 million in annual revenue, or those kinds of reasons were the primary reasons why someone didn't qualify or where an application was denied. And they were given opportunity to correct those items and given information and calls and emails from the Community Foundation, and sometimes personally from me when they had questions about how to complete their application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Arredondo Savage.
Mayor, hey, Jill, I just want to take a quick second to say thank you for your leadership and everything that you're doing in order to, really work and make that personal connection and touch with our businesses out in our community. I mean, they are struggling, and it is a day at a time. So I just want to say thank you to you, to economic development, to everybody within the city of Tempe that really worked hard to make this program happen. I mean, this was kind of something that has been in the works for quite some time. And I think it started with Rosa, Ken, and Donna, and I probably forgot a couple other people, but I just want to say thank you for everything that you do, and all the partners that really came together to get the word out and to make sure that the money went to the businesses that were most in need, and hopefully they're able to continue to stay in business and continue to be successful, because they are so much the heartbeat of this community and so important to our culture. So just a great appreciation and thanks. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Arredondo Savage. Any other
Thank you.
council members? Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you so much, Jill. Really appreciate it. And Mr. City Manager, anything else?
Mr. Mayor, I have two other brief items.
Yes.
First, with respect to the City of Tempe's pandemic COVID-19 response, I wanted to give some information right now. This will be followed up by some press releases and such over the next couple days from the city, but I did want to, with my time, just give you a verbal update. Due to the significant increases in COVID-19 cases in recent weeks locally and statewide, the City of Tempe is going to be reclosing gyms and fitness centers inside Kiwanis, North Tempe, Escalante, and the West Side community centers until further notice. Additionally, sports tournaments will be halted to help avoid large group gatherings. Our playgrounds and ramadas remain open, and outdoor activities can continue as long as physical distancing and face covering protocols are followed. Tempe Public Library will remain open in its limited capacity as it is right now, with no changes at this current time. Kiwanis, Escalante, North Tempe, and West Side community centers will remain open for other services, including after-school programs, and the Kiwanis Tennis Center will also continue to serve tennis players. Tempe believes that these facilities and activities can continue to be safely offered because physical distancing can be achieved and proper safety protocols are in place. Face coverings are required at all city facilities and temperature checks may be taken. Face coverings are required outdoors if you are unable to maintain 6 feet of distance from people outside your household. Remaining closed are the Tempe City Hall, Tempe History Museum, Edna Viles Art Center, the Pyle Adult Recreation Center, Tempe Center for the Arts, and all city senior centers. Thank you. And secondly, the other thing I wanted to mention was some sad news. We found out this week that former Tempe Fire Chief Bill Hayes passed away. Bill Hayes was promoted to Fire Chief in 1978 and served in that capacity until he retired from the department after 22 total years of service in 1988. Bill was an important part of the building of the Tempe Fire Department into the department that it is today. And we are going to be keeping him and his family in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Really appreciate it. And definitely our thoughts and prayers with the family of Mr. Chief Hayes. All right, next up here, we are going to go back here to item 4A2, recognition of Tardiana scholarship recipients. Let's wait till the presentation comes up on the screen.
Mr. Mayor, before you start that presentation, I don't know if I said this, but I meant to. Those changes to our facilities will be effective Monday. They will be effective Monday. I just want to make sure that that was clear. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Next up here, we have the recognition of Tardiana scholarship recipients. So every year, the city of Tempe celebrates Hispanic heritage with our Tardiana event. Tempe has hosted this celebration of the last 22 years, and the festival usually offers traditional and modern Hispanic dancing and music, tortilla making demonstrations, a look at Tempe's historic Hispanic roots, activities for kids, and more. Of course, this event was virtual this year, but I wanted to make sure to shine some light on the incredible young Tempe residents who received scholarships this year as part of the celebration. And of course, our coloring contest winner. Stephanie Martinez Ramos. Stephanie is a senior at McClintock High School, where she is part of the speech and debate, Avid, Spanish, and Charger tutor clubs. In addition, she spends time volunteering for Immigrant Hope, which serves the immigrant community and provides resources such as English classes. Stephanie aspires to be an immigration attorney so that she can help families experience the joy of becoming a legal resident or citizen of the United States. Her commitment to help others is summed up in her saying, "I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I always said I wanted to be something bigger than who I am right now." Next up is Shanti Orzy. Shanti is a senior at Desert Vista High School. In addition to countless awards and honors, she is a member of Thunder Buddies, Desert Vista Community Counts, the National Honor Society, Rho Kappa, and the Girl Scouts. She is passionate about education and desires to open a school in an underserved community in the future. I am thrilled to be the recipient of the 2020 Tempe Tardiana Scholarship. The help of the scholarship is a step to making my dream become a reality. Thank you for giving the scholarship to a future educator. Being raised in this wonderful community whose educators have inspired me, I have felt its outpouring of love daily and want to pay it forward. Not only are you investing in my future, but the future of our students. My mission as a teacher will be to help students acquire knowledge and skills that will help them become the most successful humans possible. I am determined to strengthen and support students to ensure that they have access to quality education regardless of their circumstances. I will strive to make sure those students who are labeled at risk have the tools they need to succeed. Teachers are the key to making a difference. You are tremendously generous and supportive, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity that will help me reach my higher purpose so that I can help others reach theirs. Thank you for supporting me and my academic path. With your help, I look forward to being able to serve this community. Thank you, Shanti. And next up, we have our kindergarten contest winners. So Ollie Evans is next up here. Ollie is a 5-year-old at Fuller Elementary School. Her teacher, Mrs. Robles, had her class participate in the coloring contest. When asked about her submission, Ollie said, "I drew an adobe house because Hispanic people helped to build Tempe. The mountains present a little shade, and the saguaro helps to give fruit. And the adobe house is for the people to live. I added a beautiful Arizona sunset. Hispanic history is important to Tempe." Thank you so much, Ollie. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up that portion. And we are going to move on here to the consent agenda. I'll turn my camera on here. All items listed on the consent agenda will be considered as a group and will be enacted with one motion by the City Council unless an item is removed for separate consideration. Members of the public may remove public hearing items for separate consideration. Public hearing items are designated by an asterisk. Council members may remove any item for separate consideration or declare a conflict of interest. If a council member would like to declare a conflict at this time, the city clerk will provide the council member with a disclosure form. Also, the public may submit written comments via the City of Tempe speaker comment card system on tempe.gov/clerk. The consent agenda is listed as miscellaneous items 5A1 through 5A7, awards of bids and contracts, items 5B1 through 5B13, and resolutions, item 5C1 through 5C7. Any agenda item marked with an asterisk is a public hearing item and can be removed by a member of the public for separate consideration. Council, are there any items that you'd like to remove from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Councilmember Cubie.
5A5, please.
5A5. Great. Any other members of council? Any other items you'd like to have removed for separate consideration? All right. Hearing none, then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Once again, miscellaneous items 5A1 through 5A7, awards of bids and contracts, items 5B1 through 5B13, and items and resolutions, items 5C1 through 5C7, with item 5A5 removed for separate consideration. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 5A5?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Navarro, seconded by Councilmember Cubie. I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call vote. Councilmember Navarro? Councilmember Navarro?
Aye.
Councilmember Cubie?
Aye.
Councilmember Garland?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating?
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage?
Aye.
Councilmember Adams?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The consent agenda is approved with the exception of item 5A5 unanimously, 7-0. Next up here was the item that was pulled by Councilmember Cubie, which is item 5A5, which is to approve the amended Tempe City Council Rules of Procedure relating to Rule 7, Committee of the Whole meetings, and replacing Rule 7 with council committees. It also makes other conforming changes to Rule 4, the City Council agendas. Just as a quick note, amending the Tempe City Council Rules of Procedure requires an affirmative vote of at least 2/3 of all council members, which equates to 5 of 7 votes required for approval. Councilmember Cubie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this came about from from a retreat back in August when we talked about reverting back to the old council committee structure. And I'll be supporting that tonight. But I just wondered whether, because this is a new system for many of us, I know not for you and for a couple other council members. And I'm wondering whether at the agenda, at the retreat, if we have one, we always have one in the summer, it's obvious that we revisit it and look, because there may be little tweaks we want to make. And whether that means having it sunset out, I hope it doesn't have to be as formal as that, or just an understanding that in August we'll look at it and make tweaks if necessary as part of the passage of this, that we'll revisit in August to just make sure everybody's copacetic with the council committee structure.
Yes, Councilmember Cubie, to that point, I'm definitely more than fine with that. I recognize it's a new system and we're rolling out here, and we typically do have our council retreat in early August, so I have no problem revisiting this issue then to make sure that things are going smoothly.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Vice Mayor Keating.
I am not in favor of relitigating this in August. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor, I mean, my thing is not to relitigate. I mean, it's frankly just to sort of check in to make sure that everything's going okay. But I'm not saying that we should bring it up for another full discussion and another vote. Just simply that, like we would do sort of regular check-ins on certain council items, just to make sure that things are going as we expected.
Yeah, that was my intention too, Mr. Mayor, not to relitigate it, not to bring it up for council, approvals and all that, but just that when during retreat times, we usually talk about the way we conduct business. So I just wanted that. And that's for you to decide too, that whether it's on the agenda, just to say, hey, how's it going? Any suggestions for improvements? It doesn't necessarily have to be statutory or a change in code. It's just a check-in about the way we do business.
Yeah, and obviously, if we're going along the way from my perspective, and the months go by, and there's no questions or concerns that are raised by council about the way that the new process is working, then there clearly wouldn't be a need to have this, talked about at the retreat in August. But I think that we can, have a placeholder there just in case. With that said, do I have any other comments or questions, or do I have a motion on 5A5?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Cubie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Garland. to go ahead here and take a roll call vote. Councilmember Navarro,
Aye.
Councilmember Cubie,
Aye.
Councilmember Garland,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating,
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage,
Aye.
Councilmember Adams,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Item 5A5 passes 7-0. Okay, next up here is the non-consent agenda. All items listed on the non-consent agenda will be considered separately. Agenda items scheduled for introduction and first public hearing will be heard, but will not be voted upon at this meeting. Agenda items scheduled for second public hearing and final adoption will be voted upon tonight. Council members who may have a conflict of interest may abstain from voting on a matter, and the city clerk will provide the council members with the disclosure form at this time. Item 6A, miscellaneous items, bids, contracts, and resolutions. First item under the section is 6A1, which is to award a construction contract to Hayden Building Corporation for the intersection improvements Rural Road and University Drive project located at 800 South Rural Road. Council, any comments or discussion? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion? Moved
Second.
by Councilmember Navarro,
Second.
seconded by Vice Mayor Keating. Call for a roll call. Councilmember Navarro?
Aye.
Councilmember Cubie?
Aye.
Councilmember Garland?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating?
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage?
Aye.
Councilmember Adams?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Item 6A1 passes 7-0. Next item under the section is item 6A2, which is to award a construction contract to Talus Construction Corporation for the pavement preservation fiscal year 2021 mill and overlay locals and collectors project located at various areas throughout the city. Council, any comments or questions on item 6A2? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Garland. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Cubie. I'll take a roll call vote here. Councilmember Navarro?
Aye.
Councilmember Cubie? Councilmember Cubie?
Mouse malfunction. Aye.
Councilmember Garland?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating?
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage?
Aye.
Councilmember Adams? Councilmember Adams? Oh, there you go. All right, thank you very much. And I vote aye as well. Item 6A2 passes 7-0. Next item under the section is item 6A3, which is to award a job order construction contract to Valley Rain Construction Corporation, Foresight Design and Construction Incorporated, and Caliente Construction Incorporated to perform the park improvement projects. Council, any comments or questions on item 6A3? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Garland, I believe, and I think seconded by Councilmember Navarro. I'm going to go ahead and call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Navarro?
Aye.
Councilmember Cubie?
Aye.
Councilmember Garland?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating?
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage?
Aye.
Councilmember Adams?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Item 6A3 passes 7-0. The next item under the section is item 6A4, which is to hold the public hearing and adopt a resolution to modify the schedule of charges, rates, deposits, and fees for water services by amending Appendix A, Schedule of Fees and Charges of the Tempe City Code. Is staff available to make a statement on this item?
Mayor, this is Ken. Terry Pecars should be available.
Okay, great. Before I ask Terry to come forward, let me just quickly ask, Madam Clerk, were there any comments made from the public on this item?
No submissions for this item, Mayor.
Okay. Just for Terry's sake too, does anyone on council have any comments or questions on this item? If not, I'll spare Terry and I can go ahead and call for a vote. But if someone does, we can have him give a little presentation.
I'm ready to vote, Mayor.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Councilmember Cubie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Navarro, I believe, right in under the wire. Go ahead and call for a roll call vote here. Councilmember Navarro.
Aye.
Councilmember Cubie.
Aye.
Councilmember Garland.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating.
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage.
Aye.
Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Item 6A4 passes 7-0. The last item under the section is 6A5, which is to adopt a notice of intention to establish a new monthly charge for a 10-inch water meter and set the date and time for the public hearing on the proposed change to February 11th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Very specific. Any comments or questions or discussion from council? And if not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Sorry, who was that motion from?
Lauren.
Oh, yep, moved by Councilmember Cubie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Adams. Okay, call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Navarro. Councilmember Navarro.
Aye.
Councilmember Cubie.
Aye.
Councilmember Garland.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating. Vice Mayor Keating.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Arredondo Savage.
Aye.
Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Item 6A5 passes 7-0. The next section on the non-consent agenda is ordinances and items for introduction and first hearing. These items will be read and introduced tonight, but no vote will be taken. The second hearing and vote for these items is scheduled for January 14th, 2021. Item B here, ordinances and items for introduction and first hearing. The first item under this section is 6B1, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the granting of an electronic underground easement to Salt River Project Agricultural Improvement and Power District over certain city-owned land identified by APN 301-47-007A and authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an easement agreement and related documents. The second and final public hearing is scheduled for January 14th, 2021. Madam Clerk, were there any comments received from the public regarding this item?
None for this item, Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Council, any comments or discussion? All right, hearing none, we're going to move on to item 6B2, which is to hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute development and disposition agreement, deeds, a land and improvement lease, a memorandum of lease and additional documents with E&R Holdings LLC or a city-approved nominee with respect to the project to be constructed at 300 South Ash Avenue. The second and final public hearing is scheduled for January 14th, 2021. Were there any comments from the public received on this item, Madam Clerk?
Mayor, I do have one card to read into the record.
Yes, please.
It's from Merrill Darcy, resident of Tempe, Riverside neighborhood.
Okay.
Merrill writes, "It's bad enough that the Hayden Square and Riverside residents will have to endure 3 or 4 years of traffic congestion, street deterioration, and construction parking issues. It's bad enough we are subjected by inadequate notices and communications by the planning department and the developers, and now have to offer incentives in return. Tempe council members have a strategic priority in upholding quality of life standards and sustainable developments for its citizens, and by allowing this applicant noise exemptions as described in Article 3.5 of the document is a nuisance in its purest form. 24-hour construction noise, even on weekends, would not be tolerated anywhere else in Tempe, or for that matter, any proximity to residential areas. This developer can construct the necessary staging, bridging, and associated safety measures to coordinate with light rail, streetcar, and bus operations. Please take consideration of the nearby residents and renegotiate renegotiate the necessity of off-hours construction for this project and adhere to the current city noise ordinances. And that's it, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Council, any comments or discussion on item 6B2? All right, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and go forward here. Item C here, ordinances and items for second hearing and final adoption. The first item under this section is item 6C1, which is to hold the second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance for a zoning map amendment from PCC2 to MU4 and an amended planned area development overlay, and approve a development plan review for a 5-story, 310-unit multifamily development for Tempe Market Station located at 1953 East Rio Salado Parkway. The applicant is Barry Riddell, LLC. Just a quick note here that I want to make sure that I add into the record before we kind of get started with this. Any discussion of a contribution that's voluntary or otherwise in the context of the regulatory action before us will not be entertained. We are voting on this matter tonight, and it's not legally permissible to factor in such contributions in the voting process, and we will therefore not be discussing it this evening. Next up, I wanted to see if the applicant is available to make a statement. I believe that's Ms. Riddell. Are you available?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I have a brief presentation if the staff would be kind enough to pull that up. Thank you. So Wendy Riddell with the law firm Barry Riddell, 6750. My pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of Trammell Crow and High Street Residential. If you could, first slide. So just to reacquaint everyone, this is the site that we're talking about today on the corner of Smith and Rio Salado, backing up to Tempe Marketplace. It currently is vacant and has been vacant now for quite a while. It was originally assembled, kind of some commercial pieces. Frankly, it was originally a brothel many years ago and sits vacant today. Next slide, please. When you look at this site in context, it's important to point out that there is no existing residential in close proximity to us. In fact, one of the things I think everyone's excited about is this is going to be the first residential project in the Smith Innovation Hub. Next slide. And then just to refresh the council's recollection, the current entitlements on this site are for convenience retail. But we think that the multifamily we're here proposing is a better reflection of the policy document recently adopted, the Smith Innovation Hub. Next slide. So then we were originally seeking a general plan amendment, but you guys were kind enough to take care of that for us, recently approved for high density residential, of course, a rezoning, PAD amendment, and then site plan approval. Next slide. And again, this is the general plan amendment that was recently approved by the council, specifically calling out this site for high density residential, 65 dwelling units per acre, and up to 90 feet in height. Next. That is very consistent with the general plan, which supports new residential and commercial development within hubs and at a certain density to support the infrastructure and commercial development in the area. Next. And again, it talks about in the general plan, high density residential needing the proximity to employment, entertainment, and pedestrian activity, encouraging interaction and creating an urban environment that contributes to the hub. This site is ideal for this increased density. Next. Also consistent, of course, with the city's vision as a 20-minute city. You've got the future streetcar route right in front of this site, and it's very appropriate that you would put high density residential to take advantage of the city's commitment to that type of infrastructure. Next. And of course, the recently adopted policy document for the Smith Innovation Hub also calls for increased building height and new residential density along Rio Salado Parkway, extending south to 5th. So again, entirely consistent with the policy and the plans. Next. It also calls for there to be horizontally integrated mixed use as an appropriate way to have both multifamily and have commercial, here located within the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub. Next. So of course, what we're proposing today is to allow the addition of 310 multifamily units at the northeast corner of the site, replacing what was previously that commercial service retail. Next. Just to give you an idea of the view, the renderings of this site, what it will look like when you imagine streetcar here along Rio Salado. You see 5 stories. Next. This is our primary entrance, also along Rio Salado, to the ability for people to pull in. You've got, again, ultimately the streetcar that will be there. Next. And this is a well amenitized development. It's got a dog park, pool, spa, fitness center, interior courtyards, lots of bike storage, outdoor barbecue areas, balconies and patios. Next, please. And then I think what has been abundantly clear is that this is indeed market rate housing that we are putting here to support the significant employment base that's within the area. When you look at ASU's Novus Innovation Corridor, when you look at Rio 2100, I think it is a much needed amenity here in the area. Next. And then I also wanted to make sure that you're aware that we do have pretty significant support from the business community, from Boyer Company that developed Rio 2100, to Lurian. Very grateful to have the support here from Mr. Brock, and then also from Vestar with Tempe Marketplace immediately across the street. I also wanted to make sure you knew the council was aware that we've had recent discussions and would propose tonight that that one stipulation be modified, 2 additional stipulations be added to try to, working with Councilwoman Arredondo Savage, to make sure that this kind of has the look and feel of that industrial, kind of more gritty sense here as part of the Smith Innovation Hub. So the 3 stipulations will address the blonde brick, replacing what was before stucco there on the corner. You'll notice also that kind of white area on the face where we're going to propose a blade sign, and then talk a little bit about how those patios are going to interact. So next slide. So we would propose to take stipulation 11, which initially was talking about working with staff to improve the aesthetic of that corner, and we would replace it with a commitment to show this blonde brick rather than stucco. And that gives it, again, that a little bit more gritty feel, that more industrial feel than more traditional stucco. Next slide. And then while we don't have the specific side here designed yet, we wanted to give you a good indication of the type of blade sign that we would be proposing. Again, a little more of that kind of vintage look, industrial look that we think is fitting of the area. Next. And so again, the stip 24 we propose to add to the site plan approval is that the applicant shall install a blade sign on Rio Salado elevation of the building. Again, intended to go in that area, that kind of white stucco area. Next. And then also, it was very important to us that the patios really show and function, and that they will be this type of masonry style brick. There will be a metal mesh panel on the top, and it will provide for the opportunity for there to be vegetation and ultimately create a green screen. The patios that are along Smith will actually have a pedestrian gate, allowing that direct interaction with the street. And then as a result, next slide, we would propose this stipulation get added to ensure that there will be this kind of masonry metal screen promoting the vegetation, this green screen, and that the patios along Smith will have these pedestrian type of gates as shown on the site plan. Next. So with that, Mr. Mayor, we would appreciate your and the council's support. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Riddell. Before I get to public comments, I want to see if the council has any comments or questions, and I see Councilmember Arredondo Savage.
You know what? Let's go ahead and take public comment, I think, before council comment. Is that okay?
That sounds good to me, actually.
Okay.
Let's do the public comment, whatever, then we will come back to council comments and discussion. So with that said, Madam Clerk, I've got a little bit of a list here. I'm going to go to our speakers first, and then we can go to the cards that were submitted for just being read into the record. The first speaker I have on my list is Deborah Zajac.
Thank you very much, Mayor Woods. I had something written out, and I just believe that this project cannot set a precedent for the area. It will probably pass. And in my opinion, this project does not at all reflect the vision of the Smith Innovation Hub. I do want to thank Councilmember Arredondo Savage for pushing that and seeing that the changes they have implemented. Ms. Friedel kept stressing the density and height. I have no problem with density being in this area, but I don't believe the aesthetics at all reflected what the vision is for the Smith Innovation Hub is. And you know, I was told that the project, we can't hold the developer responsible for aligning with the vision because it was only adopted in October of 2020. Yes and no. But now that it is adopted, I hope any future project should not be evaluated by what has been approved with this Tempe Market Station, which is now called Rio Smith thing. Consider this an anomaly and have the strength and vision and conviction to pursue what you and the residents clearly stated they want for this area. Hopefully you will be the leaders we trust to enact what you propose. Also, 11th hour negotiation versus strong guidelines. Will this be direction to the city manager and department heads to instruct staff to be firm about the guidelines you have proposed? For more than 7 years, I've been confused of how staff could recommend for approval projects that were so outside of the guidelines that were set by the city. It is my opinion that by the time projects reach council, they should reflect the guidelines and visions that the city has established. I also did watch your video, and the definition of incentives needs to be clarified. I guess we won't be talking about any of that, but from the video, when a developer asks for incentives is when the voluntary contribution can be requested. But what is an incentive? Are they variances considered incentives? Because in this project, there are reduced setbacks, greater lot coverage, reduced parking, and a coffee shop inclusion to qualify for the multi-use zoning designation. Would these be considered incentives? From the presentation that was made by this attorney, they are not asking for incentives. I also think that we need to negotiate from a position of strength. We often hear the city boast how Tempe is where people want to be. I agree, I live here. But when I hear council members state that something is better than nothing, it does not appear that it is coming from a position of strength. Being bullied by a developer with threats of withdrawing what is offered if it is not agreed to here and now is unacceptable. Also, again, you had mentioned, Mayor Woods, that you won't be discussing any of the incentive, the money, the additional funds, but how can we be assured that the money will be earmarked for intended purposes? This project is prior to January 14th, where the council meeting will be addressing the affiliate. So will these funds be going to the affiliate or to the Housing Trust Fund? The Housing Trust Fund, which I thought was to be used for property purchases, is being used for housing assistance. A worthy cause, but not what I thought was its purpose. Based on what I have seen, the city ignores established guidelines so that what can be done to assure that the land purchases and partnering as mentioned in your video. We need to be aware that money diverted from the general fund to the affiliate will have an impact on the resources available to do other improvements to benefit Tempe residents. Only the voluntary contributions are above and beyond. We need to be firm about what are considered incentives and value them accordingly. This is where direction to staff by those in positions of responsibility will be very important. It will be interesting to see how this plays out. Let's hope for the best. And at the first hearing, I think it's important we know where you stand. When projects are presented for 2 hearings, I feel it is important to get a feel when where the mayor and members of council stand about issues prior to the second meeting and vote. With this project, I knew where 5 of you stood, but you, Mayor Woods and Councilmember Garland, I had no clue. Your vote comes as a big surprise, and there is no way to address your concerns prior to the vote. Thank you for having letting me have this time.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Ms. Zajac. Really appreciate it. Next up, we've got Ronnie Sue Lee.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. My name is Ronnie Sue Lee, and I just want to thank you all for allowing me to speak tonight. In order to try to stay under 3 minutes, I'm going to try to read my comment quickly, so please bear with me. I've lived in the East Valley for 24 years. I've lived and worked in Tempe for 15 of those years. I own a home near the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub, and I co-chair the Allegra Neighborhood Association, which is immediately south of the hub. So decisions for it directly impact my home and the character of our neighborhood. I oppose the Market Station development, which I know has been renamed. I oppose the proposal and strongly hope the council will not approve it. I am concerned about Tempe's affordable housing crisis, but also as someone who is trying to encourage community and trust between neighbors and between residents and city leaders, I am very concerned about the issue of integrity that this has brought up. The city of Tempe spent considerable money, resources, and time gathering input from a range of residents and expert consultants to produce the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub development guidelines. I watched a video of the council meeting where the culmination of all the research and committee work on the hub was being presented, and I could feel the palpable enthusiasm at that meeting for what the community had accomplished and decided. Even within the guidelines document itself, one can read hope and aspirations for this development to become something special and cutting edge and provide a live-work environment that encourages community. The guidelines promised workforce housing, which should mean housing that is affordable for people who work across the street at the Tempe Marketplace and at the industrial businesses in our neighborhoods. The guidelines promised green spaces and parks and sustainability features and interesting, edgy art and design. Other promises of the hub included the precedent it would set for future developers in our area, and maybe most importantly, it promised an opportunity for the council to follow through on a project that reflects the expressed will of Tempe residents. As a matter of integrity, please seek an alternative development for this hub, which honors at least some of those promises. No one is insisting on every detail in the guidelines, but it has defied reason that a proposal which has ignored so much of the vision and guidelines has even been considered. Even if a developer is offering funds toward an affordable housing fund, and I understand the eagerness to address affordable housing through that fund in Tempe, that doesn't negate the obligation to honor what went into developing this hub's vision and to set better precedent for developers in our neighborhoods. I would love to see the, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to talk about this part. I was going to address the fact that I'm enthused about Mayor Wood's affordable housing initiatives that I've been reading about. But I don't want that fund to come at the expense of squandering this hub's unique opportunities or the trust of Tempe residents. Sorry, I got a little jumbled there, but thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Next up, we have Victor Aronow.
Uh-huh. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Aronow.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Yes, I would support everything that the previous speakers and just speak briefly on the question of market rate housing, which the presenter brought up. I looked at Norte Town Lakes, Aura Watermark, and Vela Luxury for rental prices for the various kinds of units that they had there. And I'm a little bit concerned that the housing that's going to be provided here at market rate housing is not going to allow the people who work in the hotels, the people who work in the retail facilities, the people who do all the kinds of service work that our community depends on and whose presence in the community we ought to welcome, are not going to be able to afford what we call market rate housing. For example, the studio apartments, the average cost of a studio apartment among these three apartment complexes that I looked at is $1,590 a month. This is way beyond what ordinary working people are going to be able to afford in Tempe. The cost of a one-bedroom or two-bedroom apartment, for example, is $1,600 a month. People who provide the basic services for our community are being forced out of our community because they simply can't afford to live here. And I don't want Tempe, after 50 years of living here and seeing how our neighborhoods have changed from mixed neighborhoods to more or less exclusive neighborhoods, I don't want to see our neighborhoods and the people who used to live in these neighborhoods forced out of our town so that we become more homogeneous, so that we become more like each other, so we don't have the kinds of cultural and economic and political and all the social influences that you find in a truly mixed city. I think it's too bad, and I suspect that the council is probably going to approve this. It's too bad that this contribution to the housing fund is so small compared to what the value of this unit is going to be over its 15 or 20-year life. And I regret that we are turning into a place like Scarsdale or Scottsdale or someplace where work in the community can no longer afford to live here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aronow. Really appreciate it. Next up, we have Mark Davis. Is Mr. Davis present?
Mr. Mayor, he is present. I
Okay.
have unmuted him, but he has not spoken so just yet.
Okay, I will wait then.
Mr. Davis, I see you unmuted. Could you try speaking again and checking your settings?
Let's do this in the interim, if this is okay. Madam Clerk, I know you have a bunch of cards. Can we maybe read one or two and then try to go back to Mr. Davis and see if we fix the audio problem?
Mr. Mayor, can you?
Oh, Mr. Davis, is that you?
Yes, sir.
Got
Can
it.
you hear me?
Perfect. All right, go for it.
All right, good deal. I tried to do something fancy with my phone and my computer, and I think Mayor, Council, I previously addressed this council agenda when it was last on your agenda. And I'll be brief. I own a commercial property just down the road on Rio Salado, closer to McClintock. And, you know, this project I'm in great support for. This is a transformative project for the Smith Industrial Hub. You know, this area, you know, as we heard earlier, it's representative of a lot of myriad of different uses that were established in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And what you're seeing here is an opportunity to create good, strong density in the area. And not just density with this project, but it will also help fill vacant retail. And my project is a project that converted an industrial building into a retail and restaurant uses. Now I've got vacancy because of this COVID stuff going on. But what I'm really hoping that as you bring more people to this area, you'll be able to help fill up these previous buildings that need more reinvestment. But to get more reinvestment, you need more people. And that's what this Smith Industrial Hub needs. We need more people. You know, I heard other folks talk about housing for the folks that work at Tempe Marketplace. You know, but when you go through Tempe Marketplace, you actually see quite a few empty storefronts. You know, those empty storefronts will get filled if you've got more people. This is this challenging issue in this area where retail is transforming quite a bit, and having housing and having people and having the ability for folks to kind of re-energize this area is really going to be critical. I previously spoke in support of this. My neighboring property owner, Aki, he did as well. And, you know, just keep in mind, you know, this is, you know, we've got a lot of individuals that have invested in the Smith Industrial Hub. And, you know, the future of the Industrial Hub ought to have more housing, you know, and with this guideline more cemented in, I could see where a lot of these elements that are critical to the guideline can get executed and can get implemented in on more projects, because they are important. And that's important, and not only in that aspect, but also in terms of workforce housing and affordable housing that can be established within the Smith Industrial Hub. This is going to be a critical project, I believe, to kick off more housing projects in this industrial hub, you know, as well as mixed use projects, and as well as getting, you know, more adaptive reuse projects. So it's going to be a mix of uses because there's quite a bit of land in there. Mayor, so please be supportive of this. I think it's going to help for all of Tempe. It's going to help them, people that have invested in this area. It's going to help fill these storefronts. It's going to help create jobs. And I appreciate your time tonight, and have a good Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Really appreciate it. All right. Next up, Madam Clerk, I know you have a bunch of cards. Why don't you just go ahead and go down the list and read those into the record?
Okay, just a moment, I'll pull those up. First card comes from Gregory Broberg, resident of Tempe. Gregory writes, over the past month, I have watched the City Council meetings on Tempe's YouTube channel related to the ongoing development efforts within the urban core. As an urban core resident, I have heard testimony from citizens sharing stories of affordable housing needs. I have also heard attorneys who represent future developers, i.e. Tempe Market Station, that sound like used car salespeople. I applaud those city council members who have asked for delays in approving developer requests. However, it still appears that much of this governing body continues to see developers as citizens. Those of us who live in the urban core experience the construction noise 6 days a week, after hours concrete pours at 2 a.m., and the elimination of safe bike and walking areas. We are the ones who pay $1,500 a month rental rates. I think it is imperative that this governing body realize and implement policies based on citizen needs. We need to reimagine Tempe as a place for people to safely commute, live in areas free of excessive noise and traffic, and a city that supports its most vulnerable citizens. Some key questions the City Council should be asking are, number one, what are the current occupancy rates of existing urban core locations? If these rates are low, why would it make sense to approve another development at the same rate? Number two, how can incentives for developers, property management companies be structured so that percentage of their available occupancy be designated as affordable housing? Right now, the current process of providing money into an affordable housing fund appears much like the city is taking bribes. Number three, how can the current city development analysis process incorporate more metric data related to the long-term impacts of development activities? For example, in existing records produced by the city, there's no metric discussion about impacts on existing residents in terms of traffic disruption, noise conditions, etc. These are impacts that we expect the city to be aware of and respond to. In closing, he writes, I appreciate all the work that is done by the City of Tempe staff and the City Council. However, it is lacking in terms of the way we plan, discuss, and approve development requests. Remember, you are wave makers, not rubber stamp bureaucrats. Next card comes from Kevin Brown, resident of Tempe. Kevin writes, this project hasn't changed enough to get my support. Its failings are well laid out by others and don't need to be repeated here. Also, if the incentives have been changed, I believe the vote should be postponed so the public has a chance to evaluate the changes before the vote. However, if they meet the guidelines set out in Hometown for All, then I would support that. It's time we stopped giving lip service to affordable housing and started taking meaningful action. Next card comes from Michelle Brown, resident of Tempe. Michelle writes, no one can deny the importance of developing affordable housing for Tempe residents. In fact, it should be a priority for the city, especially given the terrible and pressing issues of health, evictions, and loss of employment this year for residents in our city. It is appalling that this proposed development truly does not align with the recommendations and guidelines of the Smith Industrial Hub document. What document should be guiding the development of this area? What is driving this proposal? A 5-story apartment luxury complex with 310 units, which translates into huge profits for the developer. The city should not compromise the needs of our citizens in spite of a donation from the developer to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The donation will do nothing to make affordable housing a reality for our community. The council should oppose this proposal. Any future proposal should be truly innovative in nature and adhere to the Smith Industrial Hub document. Thank you. Next item comes from Tom Brown, resident of Tempe. Tom writes, Dear council members, Tempe continues to welcome the inevitable development that generates economic growth. The rather dense housing project proposed for the parcel south of Tempe Marketplace is a significant upgrade from the previously approved set of 1-story commercial buildings. I have no doubt that the proposal made economic sense. This one appears to have a very large increase in final value. Others will comment on the inappropriate design for the location. Setting that aside, I understand the developer has offered a relatively small contribution to the city's Affordable Housing Trust. Many citizens feel a more generous contribution is appropriate to help solve a real issue that desperately needs attention. Sales 101 behavior includes creating a sense of immediate urgency. Please do not be swayed by any hint that this offer is as good as it gets. The city will eventually receive the benefits of something, hopefully of appropriate quality, going into this narrow parcel. It is vacant land at this time, and the developer's offer is simply too small. All developers talk of creating community and bringing improvements. The citizens of Tempe see a lot of talk and a lot of profit going to out-of-state interests. The affordable housing made possible by reasonable contributions from development will contribute to a more diverse community. Thank you. Next card comes from Lucas Cabrera, resident of Tempe. Lucas writes, I join my voices to the other Tempe neighbors in opposition to the negative proposed changes and alterations to this project. These changes include increase in density and building height and decreases in setback and required parking spaces. In addition, what is sorely lacking is no live-in work units, townhomes, loft-type units, no workforce or affordable housing, no pocket parks or linear parks, no sustainable building materials, no art features or signage, and finally, such a very low donation by the developer to the Affordable Housing Fund. Please, Tempe City Council, listen to your residents. Next card comes from Susan Waters Carlson, resident of Tempe. Susan writes, my name is Susan Waters Carlson. I live on Myrtle Avenue, Tempe. I am a native of Tempe. My folks came here in 1944. My dad finished his teaching degree at the Arizona State Teachers College and ultimately rose to become the superintendent of the Tempe Union High School District. We have a long history and investment in the community. My comments are against the proposal Tempe Market Station, specifically the modification of density, building height, and setback. My concern about what's happening to Tempe smacked me in the face as I was sitting through several stoplights at Roland University, staring out at the many cranes working in downtown Tempe, laying yet another story atop already tall buildings. Again, as I drove along Apache Boulevard and saw the high-rise behind high-rise of apartments, I shook my head. I know I heard pledges from candidates running for office in this last election, talking about their commitment to quality of life issues and especially of affordable housing. That issue of affordable housing was at the top of the list of commitments made by candidates. And now we have a request to not only increase density in an apartment building, but to allow an increase in building height and decrease the setback, building right out to the sidewalk. And the kicker, instead of affordable housing units, this developer suggested offsetting that with a paltry $125,000. That's laughable, Surely, if affordable housing was important during the recent election, why would our city council even consider reducing standards and accepting such a ridiculous offer? There is a purpose to the Smith Industrial Hub. It's an economic development initiative intended to enhance key employment corridors, to promote new investment, job creation, and placemaking that attracts and retains a quality workforce. This project supports none of those strategies. I realize the role that ASU plays in many construction expansion projects in this city, but in this case, council has the power to stay true to the plan, uphold our standards, keep affordable housing on the table, and deny yet another effort to overbuild in our community. Next card comes from John Christoph, resident of Tempe. John writes, I'm currently serving as a member of the Tempe Transportation Commission and would like to express both my strong support for the Tempe Market Station housing development and my concern about targeted opposition campaign against it. I live at the intersection of McClintock and Apache, 2 blocks south of the development location. I was recently forwarded an email from an organization called Tempe Neighborhoods Together, asking people to call into this meeting and oppose the project. For the record, I know none of the people involved in this organization, and they do not represent the views of my neighbors. The email asked recipients to object to several aspects of the project in ways that are obviously contradictory, 3 of which I wish to highlight. It complained that the development would not take advantage of the transit connectivity at Tempe Marketplace because all the residents would likely drive everywhere, while also criticizing the developers for having too few parking spots for residents' cars. It claimed that the building is unsustainable, while also objecting to the building's height and density, which are the 2 most important contributing factors to lowering per capita CO2 emissions in residential structures. It condemned the project for not including affordable housing, while utterly failing to grapple with Tempe's ongoing workforce housing shortage, which makes our existing housing less and less affordable every year. These contradictory arguments may seem inoffensive to a layperson, but those of us well-versed in housing politics recognize them as tactics with a long history of use by NIMBY organizations in places like the Bay Area. The goal of these organizations, for example, Livable California, is to prevent any new housing or transit infrastructure from being built, thus keeping housing artificially scarce. It is therefore no surprise that they are supported by the same dark money groups linked to the Koch brothers that funded the Prop 105 campaign in Phoenix to shut down the light rail. And they attract membership from wealthy homeowners and entrenched landlords who benefit from higher property values and being able to charge higher rents when housing is scarce. The success of these NIMBY groups at blocking almost all new housing over the course of decades is a primary reason why in places like San Francisco, rent on a 1-bedroom apartment has risen to almost $4,000 a month. Let us be clear on this issue. Tempe needs more homes, both to alleviate the ongoing shortage, which continues to drive costs up, and to upgrade our sprawling built environment to a sustainable, dense, transit-oriented one. I'm very concerned about the possibility that outside organizations modeled after groups like Livable California may try to stop that process by preventing housing like Tempe Market Station from even being built. We cannot let what happened in San Francisco happen here in Tempe. We need more homes. Next card comes from Sharon Crook, resident of Tempe. She writes, I'm extremely concerned about this project. The city has stated their goals for this area, and the proposed development no longer fits any of those goals. They have removed live-work units, affordable housing, pocket parks, sustainable building materials, and art features. Don't let them do this. Either they should stick with the goals of the area, or they should not be allowed to develop. Most of all, the city needs to honor their commitments to the goals of affordable housing and sustainability. Next card comes from Gilbert Cruz, resident of Tempe. His comments, he writes, $1,450 to $1,500 a studio, $1,650 to $1,700 for 1 bedroom, $2,250 to $2,350 to 2 bedroom, $3,750 to $3,850 for a 3 bedroom. These are unit prices that are not reflective of the median income of Tempe, which sits around $50K a year. There are already units set at these prices throughout Tempe, projects touted by the city council that have turned into Airbnbs once they cannot be filled. Specifically the local, who got a generous tax break from the city, who now has dozens of units being used as hotel rooms, managed by Sonder, another Airbnb short-term rental clone. This is the case for almost all developments referred to as market rate by this council. The city is littered with short-term rental companies that try to profit off overpriced developments that sit empty. Sonder, Wanderjaunt, Casa are just a few. It's disingenuous to use the term market rate when the market is inflated by allowing developers to build units at rates that aren't affordable to the majority of Tempe. For people who do not live in the area, they're being built. And for a city without a homeless shelter in a pandemic, an affordable housing crisis, to consider another luxury development that does not even meet the standards set by the city for this new hub is shameful and counterproductive to the mayor's stated affordable housing goals. Next card comes from Tammy Dang. She has listed herself as a resident of Arizona. She writes, I urge the council to not accept the measly $125,000 offer that would allow for exceptions to the regulation and vision in the development of Tempe Market Station. The proposed exceptions to the regulations for the building are to increase density, allow more apartments in the building, build out closer to the street, decrease the setback, increase the building height, decrease required parking spaces, no live-work units, townhomes, loft-type units, no workforce or affordable housing, no pocket parks or linear parks, no sustainable building materials, no art features or signage. I will echo the thoughts of the residents of Tempe. Now more than ever, the city of Tempe has the opportunity to address the need for affordable housing in our neighborhoods. Please, we need to prioritize the needs of the residents over corporate interests. It's disheartening that it appears the city is shifting away from honoring their commitment to provide affordable housing to their current and prospective citizens. Unfortunately, the proposed development undermines Tempe's long-term vision of creating a community that welcomes people of all backgrounds, demographic and economic, by providing affordable housing to the citizens. Allowing this development to proceed continues to send the exact opposite message, which is that Tempe is trying to become a non-diverse, elitist community. Next card comes from Marion Durham, resident of Tempe. Marion writes, I am completely opposed to this proposal for apartments across from Tempe Marketplace. The plans presented by the developer are not consistent with the needs of Tempe citizens, particularly those who work in the city. This developer shows poor community relations when they want to change and alter city regulations, such as density of apartments, less parking, and building heights. If they are permitted to avoid following the city's approved future planning documents, it will negate all future efforts to have planned developments which benefit all the residents of our city. And offering only a payment to compensate for not providing lower cost housing makes a mockery of all the efforts the city has made to provide less costly housing to teachers, police, and others serving the public. We need more than 9 apartments out of 90, which is what the V development on Broadway, east of McClintock, is providing for low cost housing options. The Tempe Market Square proposal is even more insulting to citizens in the Tempe government. Thank you for the opportunity to make my views known. Next card comes from William Eccles, resident of Tempe. He writes, Tempe needs to negotiate a better deal closer to the city vision. And that's all he wrote. Next card, Arthur Glenberg, resident of Tempe. Arthur writes, in the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub development guidelines, the city of Tempe has done a tremendous job of producing a vision that benefits both citizens and businesses. Now is the time to reward the hard work of producing the guidelines and reward the city far into the future by implementing those guidelines without deviation. Next card comes from Noreen Hurd, resident of Tempe. Noreen writes, I am vehemently opposed to the current proposed Market Station project. I am doubly upset by all the women council members. Why would you vote to line the pockets of a developer at the expense of the very people who voted for you, the working people and taxpayers of Tempe? I will not support anyone who votes for the current project as it is of now. Please think about what you are doing to the city residents when you vote. Next card comes from Marcia Lynn Iole, resident of Tempe. Marcia writes, Tempe is a special city in which to live. My family has lived here for over 30 years. Please don't shortchange the diversity by pricing out affordable workforce housing. Please keep parks and art features. Thank you. Next card comes from Lisa Martin, resident of Tempe. Lisa writes, affordable housing has been disappearing in Tempe for some time. The establishment of the Affordable Housing Fund was one step to providing more affordable housing. Required developers to provide a certain percentage of affordable housing in their developments was another step. The Smith Industrial Innovation Guidelines set up standards for developments, and now the developer wants to disregard setbacks, parking, and park requirements, as well as affordable units. In the recent elections, all candidates vowed to make Tempe a diverse, affordable, sustainable community. If the council allows this developer to disregard all standards set to ensure that Tempe is this type of community, we will just become yet another Phoenix suburb with overwhelming traffic, astronomical rents, and no public outdoor community spaces. Please think about this before you vote. Next item comes from Richard Newhauser, resident of Tempe. Richard writes, I urge the Tempe City Council to reject the Tempe Market Station proposal. As a member of the faculty at ASU, I know that almost all of my students have to work to pay their bills, and most of them work full-time. I also know that none of my students could afford to live in what is being planned for the Tempe Market Station. Our city ought to make it possible for my students to not only work and go to school here, but to live in Tempe as well. We have enough high-cost and high-density apartments in Tempe. We do not need more of them. Instead of the kind of development proposed in Tempe Market Station, I hope the council will support affordable housing for our city. Next card is from Doris Marie Provine, resident of Tempe. This development proposal has gone from unappealing to awful. The developer has pulled back on its best commitments and introduced a series of undesirable changes. How can the council possibly approve a proposal that now wants to crowd more people in at the expense of a decent setback, control over building height, and lack of park space as a respite from all the cement? How long can the council ignore the need for housing options for folks who don't have high incomes? The pandemic makes this shortcoming of this proposal even more obvious. Many folks believe that the council is unduly attentive to the developers interested in the big bucks. Turn this proposal down and start looking for creative approaches to the crying need to make this city affordable. Next card comes from Barbara Quijada, resident of Tempe. Barbara writes, Tempe Market Station Development. Developers request to alter regulations and community vision. Why would Tempe have gone through a visioning process and established development regulations if we then allow the vision to be negated and the regulations ignored? Increasing density and building height and decreasing setbacks and required parking is not appropriate. And offering to pay $125,000 to the Affordable Housing Fund does nothing to change this. In fact, the mayor and council should find this offer offensive. Tempe's community established vision states that development should include live-work units, townhomes, and loft-type units, workforce or affordable housing, pocket or linear parks, sustainable building materials, and art features. The Tempe should at a minimum include all of these and a substantial donation to the city's Affordable Housing Fund. If it does not, the development should not be allowed to go forward. Tempe can embrace the future and develop wisely. This development does not meet our vision of doing so. Next card comes from Jennifer Road, resident of Tempe, Alegre Neighborhood Association. Jennifer writes, when the city of Tempe was getting our input in designing the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub, we dared to dream for housing that would elevate the unique qualities of North Tempe. If developers are approved to move forward with the Tempe Market Station by contributing $125,000 in exchange for not adhering to the express wishes of Tempe residents, then the City Council will have failed to represent us. Demonstrate that you're listening to us, and instead of selling us out, hold developers accountable in shaping a city that actually reflects the people who live here. Next card comes from Gail Shanks, resident of Tempe. Gail writes, Council members, Tempe Market Station is not the first apartment building within our community, nor will it be the last, and it's time for you and all of us who live in the community to put our foot down, decide what is best for all of us, not just what is best for developers. Tempe needs affordable housing. This can't be shouted loud enough nor often enough. Our employees can't afford to live in Tempe unless they live with multiple roommates and share rooms. And they have full-time jobs but must drive in from adjacent cities. Why would you allow the developers to alter the regulations they are asking for in terms of density, height increases, and parking space decreases without exacting from them existing requirements for workforce and affordable housing, green space, sustainable building materials, and public art? Why do you feel this project should get allowances that will set the precedent for future projects or continue in the line of projects that you have allowed in the past that ignore the needs of our community and line the pockets of developers at our expense? Tempe has so little affordable housing right now, and when you allow developers to play with the guidelines, promise the moon, but never when push comes to shove, give us the moon, you are selling out your constituents and our ability to be in a livable community. We don't need more high-rise, high-priced apartments for the wealthy. We need a mix of affordable housing and sustainable housing for our community. to think that you might allow a project of this size with a return they're expecting to get away with a $125,000 donation to a fund that never helps anyway seems ridiculous to me. What we need are units in the project that are truly affordable, and they should be built into the project. Are you city council members shifting away from your commitments to provide affordable housing to our current and prospective citizens? This proposed development undermines Tempe's long-term vision of creating a community that welcomes people of all backgrounds, demographic and economic, by providing affordable housing to the citizens. As a longtime business owner in Tempe, I implore you to provide the leadership and the willingness to stay the course and find developers who are our partners in providing affordable housing for our community, not take the side of those who promise one thing and then don't deliver and are allowed to build anyway. That is not a good message to be giving your constituents. It is not one that will fly with people like me. It's disheartening and would be detrimental to the welfare of our community in the long run. Next card is from Marcia Spencer, resident of Tempe. Marcia writes, in regards to the Tempe Market Station development, I would like to encourage the City Council to consider affordable housing for our fellow Tempe residents as the highest of priorities, in addition to the other important components, such as use of sustainable materials, green space, and art. Next card comes from Judy and Ron Tapscott, residents of Tempe. They write, we remain steadfast in calling for our council to vote no on item 6C1 Tempe Market Station. The developer and attorney for Tempe Market Station have made little change to the initial offer of $125,000 for exceptions to the regulations and vision for the development. The enormous size of the developer's assets highlight the insult to our community. Trammell Crow Company is one of the nation's leading developers and investors in real estate. The company has developed and acquired over 500 million square feet of buildings with a value that exceeds $50 billion. The Crow family fortune has grown to over 110 million. Trammell Crow Company assets exceed 1.5 billion. Consequently, 125,000 to them is pocket change. The Smith Industrial Innovation Hub was approved by the Tempe City Council on March 1st, 2018. It is an economic development initiative to enhance key employment corridors, to promote new investment, job creation, and placemaking that attracts and retains a quality workforce. The current rendering of the Tempe Market Station does not remotely represent the Innovation Hub vision. This disregards and disrespects Tempe residents. We spend time planning and giving feedback. The hours of labor and money are ignored. This leads to the third reason this project should be voted down. Unfortunately, the Tempe City Council has lost the trust and faith of a large segment of our community. Project after project and promise after promise to honor the input of Tempe residents has been violated and disregarded. This project has become symbolic of the decades-long culture of marketing. We are left to question, who has democracy in city government, the residents or rich out-of-state developers? And the final card is from Jennifer White, resident of Tempe. Jennifer writes, this developer should not be allowed to alter the regulations and vision of this project. It is not a fit for the Tempe long term. The developer wants to alter the regulations, and my stance is no on the following. No to increased density and allowing more apartments in the building. No to building out closer to the street, decreasing the setback. No to the increased building height. No to the decreased required parking spaces. The developer wants to alter the vision, and my stance is no on the following. No live-work units, townhomes, loft types units, no workforce or affordable housing, no pocket parks or linear parks, no sustainable building materials, no art features or signage. The original contract with all these provisions included should stand. And Mayor, that closes out public comment for this item.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Anything else, any other letters or anything of that nature before we kind of move forward? All right, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and I know that just to make sure I'm following all of the rules here, I'm going to close the public hearing. I believe Councilmember Arredondo Savage had questions, I believe, from Ms. Riddell before we went to public comment. So Councilmember Arredondo Savage.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I really do appreciate that. I mean, I always have some questions and thoughts and concerns, and I think as many of you know, I was pretty vocal at the first hearing in regards to some of my concerns, specifically regarding the design, and really wanted to find something a little bit more iconic when it came to the design of the Smith Innovation Hub and really wanted to see more features that would utilize, I think, what I interpreted as the vision and the look that we were kind of going for in that industrial urban area. And I just want to say, I'm really grateful for Wendy and her team, just taking the time to listen, to hear my concerns, and even giving me the opportunity to throw her out some ideas and some different suggestions. And then, as you saw tonight, she actually took a few of those ideas, which of course I would love for her to have incorporated them all, but I definitely understand we're at the 11th hour, and there has been a lot of challenges in regards to development in general. And I think one of the things that she said, and I totally agree with, is there's a difference between good architecture and iconic architecture. And I think with some of the changes that they've made in regards to trying to get to something iconic, that really could be create that mixed use urban edge right there at Smith and Rio Salado. I'm grateful for them to be open and flexible. So Wendy, thank you to you, to Trammell Crow, for at least hearing me out and, working and actually taking some action and being receptive to incorporating some changes even this late in the game. I'm really, truly grateful for that. And I even offered and suggested that maybe there are some different businesses within the Smith Hub that maybe they could partner with to maybe incorporate some really cool art elements that would even, take it above and beyond, where we are now. So, like I said, I definitely agree with Deb Sajak from the first hearing to the second hearing, and I completely understand when we talk about what the interpretation of the Smith Hub design was intended to be. And it's really kind of unfortunate that we had to cut our work study session a little short tonight, because there was actually an item on there that was a closure of one of our working groups that was asking us to allow for some funding so we could actually go and create some design principles for all of our innovation hubs, which I think are a really great idea. And I think, as we can see, that we are having some challenges really trying to identify what they are. So for me, the big part was the design, about trying to get to a place that I felt comfortable with, that I could support. I know there's been a lot of conversation in a lot of these cards regarding affordable housing. And Mayor, I just want to say thank you for your leadership and bringing us together and really working to find a policy, I think, that we can utilize as the city, so we don't have to do a lot of one-offs to try to solve something that we all think is really important. So I appreciate that leadership, and I look forward to that. And again, I just know this isn't perfect and not exactly where I would like to be, but it's definitely in a lot better place than where we started. And with that, I will tell you, I will be supporting this project tonight. And again, thank you, Wendy, to your team. And I want to say thank you to Ryan and the community development team to working with me and being patient, and really kind of coming up with some different ideas. So when we do work on those specific design elements, we already have some really great ideas to put forth. So with that, those are my 2 cents. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Arredondo Savage. Vice Mayor Keating.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to start off with thanking Ms. Rydell for working with council and working with yourself, Mayor, to sort of, get this project across the finish line. You and I spoke often about this project, and I know you worked tirelessly with, members of the community and the developer to to come up with something that you believed would be best for our city and be able to pass this council. So I am very pleased with your leadership on this issue. I also agree with Ms. Zajac as far as standards and guidelines that need to be created. In fact, the working group closure memo that Councilmember Arredondo Savage is referring to is mine. And yeah, I do plan when we have another work study session in trying to secure those funds to get a professional consultant to take a look at our innovation hubs and our recently created zoning overlays to come up with a set of uniform standards so that we don't have to do this for every individual project that was coming in, and hopefully it'll streamline this a little bit more, and we'll be able to get a product that most Tempeans will be happy with. I want to thank the members of the public that took the time to write in. All of our, our process is better when we have public input, whether they agree or disagree with the final decision of this council. It's important that people pay attention and they offer their input. I want to particularly thank Mr. John Christoph for his eloquent and what I thought was a very well laid out argument. So, this was certainly a learning experience for a lot of us on this council, and I'm very happy that it seems to have gotten to a place where it's going to be largely accepted. So I will be supporting it tonight, and I'm looking forward to, one, getting those guidelines solidified and put in place, and two, working with members of the public and yourself, Mayor, to work on the affordable housing issue in the city of Tempe. And I do believe that this project will lead to a good start in those efforts. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor Keating. Councilmember Adams.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thanks, Wendy, for your hard work and perseverance on this project. I do like the new look. I appreciate Councilmember Arredondo Savage's input on changing the look a little bit. I think it's better. We do have a lot of new companies moving into Tempe, and we want to keep those employees living, working, and spending their money in Tempe. With that said, I do thank the members of the community, and I'm confident we will have a formula in place when we look at future projects that incorporates the neighborhood's needs and wants early on, and so we get off to better footing in the future. I will be supporting this project this evening, and look forward to moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. Councilmember Cubie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I must dissent. And I think it's important to note that the applicant gained increased density and value from the adoption of the general land use map amendment that was associated with the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub that was back in October. And tonight they're seeking quite a number of entitlements, which in turn increases the value of the land and then goes forever with the land. Perhaps it could be as much as $6 million in increased value from all of this. So the project never gets built, which can, let's face it, it can often happen. And I've seen that happen in many projects since I've been on council, and these are perilous economic times. So these entitlements, all these gained entitlements, cannot be reversed in the future. So just to review, that they're asking for a zoning map amendment that'll change the zoning on 4.6 acres to residential. And then the second amended planned area development overlay will increase the height. Again, I agree with Christoph. I'm not opposed to height. And I don't think a lot of the folks at Tempe Neighbors Tempe Neighbors Together are talking about, they're not opposed to height and density. So this overlay will increase the height, not opposed, but it will also reduce setbacks. It'll be a much bigger, take up much more space on the lot. There'll be a far reduced landscape area. And now let's just talk about the Smith Innovation Hub. The Market Station and the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub, they may be physically linked because this is supposedly going to be now the gateway project for the Smith Innovation Hub. So they're physically linked, but they're conceptually contradictory. And I hear from Wendy, and I appreciate your arguments. I would make the same arguments if I were representing the developer, but you mentioned project elements that they are consistent with the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub to tout the project, but you're very selective with those elements, shall we say? And under the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub guidelines, it does say, in quotes, the inclusion of mixed-use residential development in and around this area aligns with several key priorities of the city to help provide new options for the many workers who commute from outside communities. Specific housing types recommended are loft-style townhomes and live-work units where appropriate, so as not to conflict with existing business and light industrial operations. And then again, the ULI, the Urban Land Institute of Arizona, they gave us technical assistance in drafting up the Industrial Innovation Hub, and they said it'd be desirable to have more arts and mixed-use development that include loft-style, live-work type residential development to house residents such as artists and craftspersons. Now I know that the guidelines are guidelines, they're not requirements, but the developer does not plan to provide live-work units, townhomes, loft-type units, green space, pocket parks, linear parks. There is a pet area, but it's in an interior courtyard. Unless I'm mistaken, that's not really a public amenity. Sustainable building materials, no, there's no solar even. I don't even know if it's solar ready. Art at intersections, is it going to be a grab and go market, food truck areas, collaborative office, incubator spaces? This doesn't seem to be this aesthetic, creative vision of an industrial look, a funky look, cool buildings, more creative elements that is supposed to, you'd think, would match the gateway project for this Smith Industrial Innovation Hub. But ultimately, we have to use the criteria that's in our zoning and development code. And the criteria for a PAD is that the development fulfills the goals and objectives in area policy plans, which I find it does not. That it takes into consideration location and context for the site of the project. I find that it does not, if we're talking about the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub. That it mitigates transitional impacts in immediate surroundings like heat. Arguing that there's trees every 30 feet and somehow that's going to reduce heat when the overwhelming effect of having this big massive block and reduced landscaping won't mitigate heat. To me, it does not set the stage for future revitalization and redevelopment as the developer contends. And the architectural style detail, while I appreciate there were some changes made, a couple of signs, it's not appropriate to that area. And the criteria for zoning amendment is ultimately that the project should be in the public interest. So height, density, less parking, yes, to me, that's in the public interest. But in my thinking, this project, as designed, the architecture, the blockiness of it, the unexceptional nature of it as this hub, as a opening, the gateway to the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub, it's not in the public interest, and it's not enough just to add a block of housing to the tax rolls. So I choose to exercise my discretion, and I am a no vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cubie. Any other members of council?
Hi, Mayor. This is Councilmember Garland.
Yes, go for it.
Hi, thank you. I just want to say thank you to the members of our community who sent in letters and signed on to other letters regarding this project. And it's really important for you to know that your voice was heard. And I am always very thankful that whether somebody agrees with me or not, that they speak up for the city that they care about. And I think it's really important that our residents are engaged and they take the time to share their thoughts on issues in Tempe. And I know that this is not the project for service workers that are across the street from Tempe Marketplace, but I do think it's appropriate for the 400+ jobs that are coming to Tempe through businesses like Freedom Financial and Benchmark and Electronics. Hopefully some of those employees can live in Tempe Market Station and bike or take the Future Light Rail to work, spend their money at the Tempe Marketplace across the street or businesses surrounding the Tempe Market Station. And to me, it just seems like a great way to keep the revenue in Tempe benefiting our local businesses. So in trying to figure out what I thought about this project, I talked to lots of people. I've read every single one of the letters that have been sent into the city. I watched both presentations to the DRC, found it really helpful to listen to what the staff had to say, the questions that they had, the developers and the commissioners. I drove through the neighborhood once. I walked the neighborhood. I talked to some of the businesses. The businesses are, around there are looking forward to residents coming in to help their businesses. The people across the street at Tempe Market Station or Marketplace, they want more traffic, foot traffic from people in there. When I walked around, I was surprised at how many office spaces were empty. And the business owners that I spoke to around there were hoping that this would energize the area. They just need people to be in there. So I know this isn't 100% of exactly what everybody wants, but I think for this point right now, I am in support of it. And I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Anyone else from council? Comments, questions?
Mayor, I move we approve.
Okay, moved to Vice Mayor King. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Savage. I'd like to make a quick comment as well. Can someone mute here? So just a couple of quick things I wanted to say too before we actually take a final vote on this. I will be supporting this as well this evening. A few things actually that I looked at, and I first did want to thank the residents for their engagement. You know, one of the things that we always talk about, I remember talking to a lot of residents even during my council tenure who would say, you know, Corey, I know I regularly send you emails and call you and send text messages, and I'm sure maybe I'm disturbing you in some way, shape, or form. And I always told them, and this still holds true now. That's not bothering me at all. The biggest challenge, frankly, is when you actually have a neighborhood and have a community where people aren't engaged, where people don't email the council, where people don't come and speak at public comment. So for everyone who wrote a letter or came and spoke this evening, whether you were in favor or against the project, frankly, I just appreciate you being willing to step forward and voice your opinion to myself and to all the members of this council, as well as our staff. I think it's critically important. One thing I did want to comment as well on that Ms. Zajac talked about in the beginning, which I completely concur with her on, I do believe that we have to really spend some additional time working on getting much more specific and finite design requirements. I think that we have to be very, very careful when we're talking to residents about what a building should look like or what the design should look like, that we're actually able to deliver on that vision. I think that's critically important, whether it's in the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub or the Tempe Maker District, or frankly, any other development within the city. I do believe 100% that things do have to be as advertised. And so, you know, I know that, you know, while this project does currently fit what the vision is for the external portion of the Smith Hub, and I do want to have staff speak to that for a second. I do understand, you know, the concern that residents have when it comes to design guidelines and things kind of meeting sort of a sort of look and feel of what they have been, what's been advertised to them. So I do think that that's critically important. I wanted to also, before going to staff, I wanted to also thank Councilmember Arredondo Savage too for her input on this project, which I do believe did make substantial improvements in terms of, you know, the blonde brick, doing that on that corner and throughout other portions of the building, frankly, does really improve it, replacing some of the stucco in the exterior. I think that's a huge upgrade in terms of contributing to the overall look and feel of the building, as well as the industrial look that sort of fits the Smith name. I loved the versions of the blade sign that were shown, just even if they were simply examples of what might work going forward. But I think you adding signage of that nature could add kind of a much more distinctive quality to the building and kind of a funkiness that it really could use, you know, moving forward. I also know that we're talking about doing some additional signage on that corner that the city would frankly be working on, that we would control and be able to frankly really kind of design some of that corner and make it even more inviting as a gateway to the Smith Hub. So I'm excited about that. And also that third stipulation, I know that Councilmember Arredondo Savage spoke about, which is that masonry metal screen on the outside of those corners of those pads. I think that's critically important, that the screening, whatever, clearly adds a much more kind of rustic metal look that I do believe is much more in keeping with the vision of the Smith Hub, which many of the residents who spoke tonight or sent in comment cards actually referenced. The one thing I want to say really quickly too, regarding this project is that I know that one of the differences that I learned, because I was not on council at the point in March of 2018 when this was first talked about, and I know I've sort of come onto the council sort of towards the tail end of the 11th hour of this, but one of the questions I had initially asked our staff internally at Economic and Community Development was, why was this project, did it fit the area, frankly, as opposed to another portion of the Smith Hub? And what was explained to me was that there was a specific section of the Smith Hub that was sort of carved out that's known as the urban edge, which actually calls for increased density, which is that Rio Salado frontage. So whereas on the internal portion of the Smith Hub, the project, frankly, with the increased density might not be something that we would be looking for and might not get approved by staff. But on this one section that fronts Rio Salado and that actually would front mass transit opportunities like streetcar, it actually is an appropriate development from a height and density and unit standpoint. And so I do think that was one of the things also that sort of turned me when looking at this, that I did realize that specific section on the external portion of the Smith Hub actually does fit what was actually put out by the city and does fit the zoning and does fit the vision. How, you know, and right, in future projects that would come forward, that would be frankly on the internal portion of the hub, I believe the standards would frankly be a lot different. But I do believe that we have to continue working with staff and getting input from our residents to really make sure that we get those design guidelines shored up. So once again, as I said before, that whatever we actually go out and advertise to the public, we can 100% deliver on that vision to the satisfaction of our residents. So I just wanted to say that really quickly. I will be in support of this project. One thing I wanted to ask Vice Mayor Keating, just to see if we could get this on the record, if people might withdraw their motions. But I wanted to see if someone would make a motion, frankly, with the modification of Stipulation 11, which is to add the blonde brick to replace the stucco, to add Stipulation 24, which is to install that blade sign on the Rio Salado elevation of the building, and Stipulation number 25 here, which is to also add the masonry metal screen. And if someone would be willing to potentially withdraw their previous motions, but maybe make a motion, whatever, including the one modified stip and the 2 additional steps, that would be great, just so we have it for the record.
Mayor, this is Vice Mayor Keating. I will withdraw my original motion and move we approve with the modified stipulation and the 2 additional stipulations.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Keating. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Adams. Any further comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call vote. Councilmember Navarro?
Aye.
Councilmember Cubie?
Nay.
Councilmember Garland?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating?
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage?
Aye.
Councilmember Adams? And I vote aye as well. That means that this item passes 6-1 with Councilmember QB voting nay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Riddell?
Mr. Mayor, yes. If I could, I'd just like to let you know, on behalf of Trammell Crow, we're extremely grateful for your approval here tonight. And that we also wanted to let you know that we're extremely grateful for the leadership of you and the council with your Hometown for All initiative this week. And Trammell Crow would like to offer, though it is not a requirement of the zoning, which we also appreciate, but we will be issuing to you a statement of gift, donating $125,000. We hope that helps launch your Hometown for All to your Affordable and Workforce Housing Coalition Fund. So I will be sending the statement of gift, the letter, off to your city manager still yet tonight. I'm sure he will share that with all of you. But again, we wanted to express our sincere gratitude for your leadership and recognition of this issue, and hope that this helps and shows Trammell Crow's commitment to Tempe.
Thank you, Ms. Riddell. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate Trammell Crow for making the very generous donation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next up here is item 6C2, which is to hold the second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance extending and increasing the corporate limits of the city of Tempe, Maricopa County, state of Arizona, pursuant to the provisions of Title IX, Chapter 4, Article 7, Arizona Revised Statutes, as amended, by annexing 3.75 acres identified by APN 301-60-052B with an address of 1230 West Caroline Lane. Madam Clerk, were there any comments received from the public regarding this item?
Mr. Mayor, yes, there are, and we have 2 speakers live that wish to address council on this item. First is Anne Marie Murray.
Hello, thank you, Mayor Woods and council members. I appreciate the chance to speak. I mainly wanted to make a few points about the characteristic of Caroline Lane. Caroline Lane is a narrow 2-lane road. On one side, it exits onto Priest Drive. On the other side, it ends in a cul-de-sac, which is also the entrance to our community of Tempe Village. Please note, there's only this single entry and exit for our community of 120 homes, as well as all residents along Caroline Lane. It is already challenging to enter and exit with the large San Sonoma complex directly across the way and the new Rhythm Villas a few blocks away. Whether we are trying to commute to schools or offices or relying on deliveries, Preserving this access is critical. One comment I might make is it would be astonishingly easy to create dysfunction where people are waiting on priests to enter the community, where people are waiting inside our community, causing a backup all along Caroline Lane in both directions. There's already a difficulty with just having that property have 2 horses on it at the moment. Equally critical would be ensuring the expansion of internet bandwidth to cover any new residences. We're barely served by the existing infrastructure, so that would be an important point to think about. There are also concerns for our Tempe Village community specifically that there may be changes required to our entrance gate or area due to construction. Again, it's already a bit tricky since it's a cul-de-sac that ends in the gate trying to serve this area. I just wanted to thank you in advance for your consideration of these points with respect to any of your projects contemplated along Caroline Lane. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Madam Clerk, we have a second speaker.
We also have Chris Mitchell.
Mr. Mayor, I'm attempting to locate Chris Mitchell. One sec.
Okay, I see him with his hand up here. My attendee list. There we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Oh, well, thank you, Mayor and council members. I know this is a long hearing and dragging on, so thanks for taking the time this evening to hear me out. And in regards to this annexation, I'm obviously a resident of Tempe, and I live here on Caroline Lane. And the reason I'm talking to you is just to ask that you reject the proposal to annex, really, honestly, a small, tiny piece of land into your city of Tempe from what is currently, a Maricopa County island. I mean, main concerns, and Anne-Marie already, laid it out. There is, and I really urge you all to please take a look on a map if you're not familiar with this area already. There is only 2 lanes that can possibly feed, or that do feed, all of Tempe Village, which is a community of 120 homes that was added 10 years ago. And there's all the homes on the island for which I live on. And this, there's a grave safety issue that must be considered here because if you can, what all the traffic that's been added recently with the 596 unit Mark Taylor complex, Rhythm, this 120 home Tempe Village, and then now you're going to annex in a property that's going to allow a developer to add 30 to 50 homes, 300 to 500 car count to a road that cannot handle that infrastructure. So a really important point I ask you please consider is that Tempe Village was originally slotted to be 140 to 160 home community, and your traffic engineering department did not allow that community to be built to that size because of Caroline Lane. They made that community only allowed it to be 120 homes. And so here we are 10 years later with a private resident and a private developer trying to build 30 to 50 homes, which is more than that 25% that you guys did not allow back then, onto a road that is no different and no more developed. And then take into consideration the massive load of Priest Drive, Priest Road with all of Mark Taylor and Rhythm. So I beg that you guys take a look at that and consider that you have 130 residents, households, not residents, households, with hundreds and hundreds of taxpaying and residents of your city that are against this. I have a petition signed of 140 households. I have over 220 people on my page on protectcaroline.com that are all against this, and it's growing because we're letting people know that this is not a lot of people know this is happening. So how could we possibly upset 120 to 140 households over a private developer that is only in this for profit? So over 30 homes. So I urge you to consider that this is not for the community. This is strictly for profit. This does not better your community, and I don't think it's a necessary element to have in our neighborhood. So, excuse me, I have a allergy, but please take a look at a map. Please take a look at this project, and I urge you to please vote no against annexation of this land. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, and no worries. This allergy season is also killing me as well, so I appreciate you coming out tonight.
Awesome, thank you.
Does anyone, any other cards, Madam Clerk? I know you have cards to read, but any other speakers?
We do have an applicant representative, Brendan Ray.
Okay. Do we want to go with the applicant before the comment cards, or should we just go with the cards?
That's your discretion.
Let's go with the cards, and then let's bring up the applicant.
Okay. First card comes from Audra Slemmer, resident of Tempe. She writes, I am concerned about the privacy of our development and the traffic flow that will be brought to Caroline. It is overly congested. Has the city even done a traffic load test to approve this? Please do not allow this. Next card, Annika Ryan, resident of Tempe. She writes, nature, beauty, and space are critical to our daily lives. It provides peace, joy, and healing to our souls. Our community needs this more now than ever. 1230 West Caroline Lane is a beautiful horse ranch property and a significant reason we enjoy our neighborhood. Please oppose the request to annex 1230 West Caroline Lane. The applicant and ownership of the property intends to develop into a 30 single-family detached units. Although the annexation request is technically a separate matter from development, it is still worth considering that they intend to develop in a way that's against our neighborhood's character. Will annexation inevitably lead to rezoning and development? Development of that property will cause major traffic, safety, and noise concerns, drastically altering our immediate neighborhood. The devastation of changing 1230 West Caroline Lane cannot be overstated. Please oppose the request to annex. Next card comes from someone who calls themselves Protect Caroline. ProtectCaroline.com was established to stop this annexation. We have 140 residents that have signed the petition and 220 members on our Facebook page and growing. People in your city do not want this to happen. Please do not choose profit over people. In the past, you did not allow Tempe Village to build 100 to 160 homes because of traffic load. This is your traffic engineering department that decided this. So they made it 120 homes. That alone should tell you to deny the 30 to 50 homes that they are going to build on this 3.75 acres they are trying to annex. Please say no to this. It is your duty to protect your citizens. Thank you. Next card is from Kristen Nordval. Kristen writes, Caroline Lane is not intended for condos or high-density housing. There's already serious hazards with traffic getting onto Priest with the large apartment complex across the street. The zoning around this area is already all over the place. This is just about money and not our community. Next card comes from Anne Murray. Anne writes, the city already approved the apartments across from our exit on Priest, which leave a scant 1 car length if both sides are turning left. They clearly stated that the traffic study was done by the builder versus the city and used this information to decide that Tempe Village required no accommodation. They further suggested that if Tempe Village wanted a light for safety purposes, we could come up with $250,000 to cover the cost. The city also refused to put a no left turn sign on the apartment side, even though the apartments have multiple exits and we have only the one. Now they are once again siding with builders over the needs of the homeowner. We can barely get in and out of our one access point to Priest Road as it is. What will it take for the needs of the homeowners to overcome this bias towards the builder? They have taken far more consideration of bike paths than our actual ability to enjoy the homes for which we pay taxes to the city of Tempe. Next card is from Wanda Lavarato. Wanda writes, I have a 2-year-old granddaughter residing in Tempe Town Village. We know development adds burden to schools and various services paid for by the taxpayer, such as the roads we use, to begin with the intersection at Priest and Caroline, law enforcement, sewer system, and electrical grid. Also, the quality of life issues such as the environment. My question is, what impact will the children living in Tempe Village experience developmentally from the noise and activity related to building an apartment complex right next door to where they live, as evidently the entire community will be impacted? Next card comes from Peter Hill. Peter writes, this area is an oasis within the city of Tempe. To put in apartments or other developments would heavily congest this area and take away from the ambiance and draw of the neighborhood, negatively affecting housing prices. This would also lead to congestion, traffic challenges, and with those, potentially more accidents and a rise in the crime rate, which is currently very low. Please put yourself in the shoes of the residents and ask yourself if this is something you would want in your neighborhood. I'm confident the answer would be a resounding no. Next card comes from Jim Bone, resident of Tempe. Jim writes, the traffic increase, the speed of the traffic, the one way for traffic in and one way for traffic out. As you should know, your traffic division advised the builder that they needed to reduce the number of planned homes because number of traffic trips was too high for the planned subdivision. So now a developer wants to add more traffic. Last card from Richard Bowman. Richard writes, I would like the City Council to understand the traffic flow issues associated with Caroline Lane and the fact that we don't have a traffic light to assist us at the intersection of Priest and Caroline. I would also like to discuss the possibility of creating at least an exit port for our neighborhood on the east end that would access Hardy Drive. This exit would relieve the congestion we experience every morning while trying to get onto Priest Road. And that closes out public comment, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Let's go ahead and bring up the applicant, Brennan Ray, to make a presentation or a statement.
Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Brennan Ray, 1850 North Central, on behalf of the applicant. We certainly appreciate the number of residents that have written in and expressed concerns about this. As the council is well aware, annexation is only the first in a series of steps that could potentially lead to new development. This council's decision to annex this property tonight does not guarantee, does not give any rights relative to what that property can develop as. It just merely means that we are taking property that is currently in unincorporated Maricopa County and legally bringing it within the city of Tempe's jurisdiction. We plan on, after this annexation, obviously proceeding forward with a rezoning case and various other applications, but recognize that through that process, we are going to need to work closely with city staff to ensure that it's safe and an appropriate development for the area. And we know that there's going to need to be an extensive amount of neighborhood outreach that is going to occur and that will occur as we continue down the process. And so we look forward to working with the neighbors, working with staff as we keep kind of going down this road.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ray. Sorry, just trying to get myself off of mute here. Let's see, anyone from the council now have any comments or questions about this item? Councilmember Cubie.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I have some questions. I don't know if it's for Judy or for Chad or Ryan, but I mean, I do have concerns about, you know, I haven't driven down there, but I did look at the map pretty closely. And I know that originally Hardy businesses were opposed to having an entrance and an exit that goes from Caroline to Hardy. And it just seems like any kind of project would be untenable without having an exit. And I know we're not debating that, that will come later, but are there any assurances we could have? Because this is just a vote on annexation. And there's going to be a lot more discussion, but is there any assurance the council could have that we would be in that situation where we'd be creating a traffic nightmare?
Yes, Councilmember Cubie, this is Ryan LeVake. Certainly that's something that will be evaluated and we'll certainly evaluate the trips generations for any proposal that comes forward. I know there have been concerns from the Tempe Village area about their access, ingress, egress into Caroline Lane, into their community. There is a secondary emergency access point at the end of the property there that goes on to Hardy. there may be an opportunity to work with them and see if there's opportunity to improve that. It becomes maybe a secondary access for that community, but we'd like to still continue working closely with the transportation division on what potential opportunities that may have for the community. But these are just some examples of the ongoing discussions we can have through the process.
Mr. Mayor, that being the case, I wonder if we could seek council consensus for the city to reach out to those neighbors that signed the petition and then explain that. So for them to know we're not voting on creating that development, that there's going to be plenty of time to ensure that we won't be creating a congested traffic nightmare.
Sure. I think what you're, and I don't want to mischaracterize what you're saying, Councilmember Cubie. It sounds like you're saying, that we are basically only voting on the annexation, whatever, but even if we vote on this evening, you would like to make sure that city staff does reach out to the neighbors in this area to have this discussion. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Just, I think we should try to communicate with the residents about what this means and what's going to be happening in the future when we'll welcome their input.
Okay, sounds good. Let me go through the rest of the speakers then, and I'll come back around to that. But thank you, Councilmember Cubie. Councilmember Navarro?
A quick question. I was just curious, so this piece of parcel wants to be annexed. Why is not the whole community wanting to be annexed? Or have they all tried to petition that? Has that ever come up as a possibility? Ryan, do you have the answer to that?
Yeah, there's been occasional interests in annexation. Not a lot of times on the county island and the Caroline Lane specifically, it's been single owner requests, and maybe as a result of the property being purchased to a new owner. There has been no mention or interest that we're aware of that where a number of properties have come in collectively. Certainly, this parcel has an interest to go through a second phase of the process, which would be a rezoning request to seek a new proposal. But at this time, as a result of the annexation, what that does is incorporate into the city of Tempe limits and designate the zoning for the property as AG agricultural. And the AG agricultural zoning district allows only one dwelling unit per acre. So what's out there today would be compliant with the AG zoning district that gets as a result of an annexation.
Okay, and with that, just for clarity, there is, with all those properties, and they're all like about an acre or whatever, none of those properties are annexed with Tempe currently.
That's correct.
And then you mentioned, I know the area very well, on the back end where the gated housing community, there is an emergency exit. And for the life of me, I can't figure out where that's at.
Yeah, there's just some decomposed granite area there on the northeast corner of the community that for emergency purposes only if fire had to get through there, that they can open up that gate to access Hardy.
Do we know who the property is that has that vacant property to?
Yeah, it's commercially owned, but it's vacant. But there is an easement that crosses that property that allows that access.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, that's good enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro. Councilmember Garland.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was looking actually on the Google Maps to look at this property, and I went back to 2006 when it was just a quiet little Caroline Lane with 11 properties on it and a dirt lot, probably farm at the very end. And so I'm just amazed that the 11 lot owners then had to have that 120 houses driving down their quiet little road. But I did go to that quiet little road. I sat there on a Friday afternoon for about 45 minutes and the same thing on a Saturday morning just to see what the traffic was like and people coming and going. I didn't see a lot of traffic, but it's COVID, not a lot of people are out right now. But I did see a couple of times that it did take somebody, quite a while to a few minutes to get out and make a left-hand turn. So to get out onto Priest Drive. So I did see that. I I do think that looking at this property, that it really would be wise if we could find some other way for them to be able to exit besides going down Caroline Way. So if there's any way that we can look at moving and getting another exit for them, I think that would be great. But right now, just to be clear, we are just voting on annexation, and anything else regarding that property would be a later time. And my understanding is that that means that that property, if it were going to change zoning, would be coming back to us quite a few times. Is that correct?
Councilmember Garley, that's correct. We have yet to receive a filing of a zoning application. Likely that's to happen subsequently after the annexation process. But the applicant, as he mentioned, is responsible for conducting the neighborhood meeting. So there'll be initial outreach opportunity, and then there'll be at least 3 public hearings on the matter at some future time, probably in mid-2021.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just want to make sure that the residents had an opportunity to talk to the landowner and have more discussion and their voice heard more as the process moved.
Yes, there certainly will, and I think this is a great opportunity to provide that engagement and understand what those concerns are.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Councilmember Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I used to live right by Carolyn and for many, many years, and I know that the traffic is very treacherous in that area, and I would I'm okay with the annexation, but I know that we need to really have our traffic folks help us with the future of this and how we're going to make this happen, because the residents have legitimate concerns. So that's all I need to say on it right now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. Any other members of council, any comments or questions? I have one question just to make sure, just for my own personal clarity on this, Ryan. So basically what this is it's simply a vote for annexation, but there's no project that's actually been brought forward yet or obviously approved. And therefore, in a sense, this council would have another bite at the apple to make sure that anything that did get brought forward in terms of an actual project or the traffic that might be brought along with it, that would be back for then a separate vote if and when that is brought forward for the council to consider whether or not we wanted to vote that up or down. Is that correct?
Mayor, you're correct in your statement.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, any other members of council, any comments or questions? All right, hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved, Mayor.
Moved by Councilmember Arredondo Savage. Who was the second? Councilmember Cubie? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call vote here. Councilmember Navarro?
No.
Councilmember Cubie?
Yes.
Councilmember Garland?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating?
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage? Councilmember Adams? And
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Item 62 passes 6-1 with Councilmember Navarro voting no. Next up is item 6C3, which is to hold the second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the dedication of certain city-owned land located near the intersection of Priest Drive and Grove Parkway related to the Priest Drive Grove Parkway roundabout project for use as public right-of-way, and authorizing the city engineer to execute a declaration memorializing such dedication and related documents. Madam Clerk, were there any comments received from the public regarding this item?
Nothing for this item, Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Council, any comments or discussion?
Move to approve.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Cubie to approve. Any second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Garland. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Navarro? Councilmember Cubie?
Aye.
Councilmember Garland?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Keating?
Yes.
Councilmember Arredondo Savage?
Aye.
Councilmember Adams? And I vote aye as well. Item 6C3 passes 7-0. Item 64 has actually been removed at the request of staff. Next up, we have item 6C5. And let's see here, item 65, just to be clear, the applicant actually for 65 has requested the council take action to continue this item to the regular council meeting on January 14th, 2021. So this will not be considered this evening. And that brings us to item 7, current events, council announcements, and future agenda items. I'm going to go ahead and start with Councilmember Adams.
Mr. Mayor, my first announcement is emergency rent and mortgage funds. Councilmember Lauren Kuby and I hosted an eviction prevention task force summit at the beginning of November. I want to thank the staff and all of the amazing service providers who attended. It was very productive summit and we had discussions. One of the obstacles we discussed was how to reach tenants and landlords about the resources that are available to them. So I'm very happy to announce that the city of Tempe has nearly $2 million in emergency funding available to those impacted by COVID-19. Applicants can live or work in Tempe, and I encourage you to apply now. And if you know someone who needs help or assistance, please visit tempe.gov/housing for application details. That's tempe.gov housing for application details. So my second announcement tonight is that this is our regular council meeting. This is our last regular council meeting of the year, and I just want to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday, as well as a happy New Year's. So please be safe. Remember the social distancing. Wash your hands, and we'll see you next year. Thanks, everyone. Amazing community.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Adams. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if we have anything showing up, but this Saturday, if it comes up, this Saturday from, I believe, 8:30 to 10, we're going to be having a Java with Joel virtual community meeting. And what we'd like to do on this one is we're basically going to talk about housing concerns in the 85282 area. From anywhere from just affordability, what is affordability in the area, what do we see, or get a sense of the pulse of how that looks like in our certain zip codes. And I like to kind of go through zip code to zip code to kind of find that information out. So we're going to take a little live poll during the conversation. I know that Mark Stapps, ASU director within real estate, he'll be joining us talking about potential topics that might come up and weigh in on those conversations. So I think it's going to be great. Along with city staff will be there to ask or to handle some other questions. But I think it'll be a great conversation about housing within that zip code. Hopefully we can get a lot of people from that zip code to chime in, but everybody's welcome to be part of that discussion. So I appreciate it. It's from 8:30 to 10 a.m. It's a virtual community makeup, and hope to see a lot of people out there join in. In addition to that, just another happy holidays and happy New Year's, and we'll see you guys next year.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Navarro. Councilmember Garland.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say happy holidays to everybody. Wishing everybody a Merry Christmas and an early birthday wish for our mayor. Happy birthday, Corey, almost.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next up here, we're going to go with Vice Mayor Keating.
I just want to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season. Here's looking forward to hopefully a better 2021 than 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Keating. Councilmember Kuby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of slides. They come up, and want to just wish everyone happy holidays and stay safe, stay at home, avoid indoor public spaces at all costs. We're facing a public health catastrophe. So I'm sorry to be a Debbie Downer there, but and then with the first slide, we have Ralph Remington. Let us celebrate our Deputy Director of Arts and Culture and our resident Artistic Director, Ralph Remington. This is Ralph's last council meeting, And he'll be leaving at the end of the month to be the Director of Cultural Affairs for the San Francisco Arts Commission. What a coup, like what a loss for the city of Tempe, but San Francisco has gained an amazing artist and director. So Ralph came to us a little bit over 4 years ago, and in that short time, he's had left such a lasting impression on arts and culture in Tempe. Under his leadership, we began to stage our own productions instead of just hosting other companies. And his work has been exceptional. The content at TCA, it's been emotional, riveting, provocative, and occasionally highly controversial, which is, let's face it, it's exactly what art should be. Thank you, Ralph, for your vision, for challenging me as an audience member. I'll never forget the Dutchman, and for the pride that we feel that our city is tackling challenging social issues in ways that bring the community together, even in divisive times. Your passion and your voice are going to be greatly missed, but I look forward to coming to see your work in San Francisco. So high regards, and we'll miss you very much. And Testing Tuesdays is a program we've begun, free saliva testing. It's much better than having your brain scrambled with a nasal swab, trust me. And every Tuesday, December 8th through February 23rd at the Cahill Senior Center. And that's really important. I'm so delighted to see it's on Tuesday because the Aris Foundation feeds sometimes as much as 200 homeless people on that Tuesday at JC Park, right next to the Cahill Center. So we'll be able to have our homeless population be tested and protected as well. So please get tested 8 a.m. to noon and 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Tuesdays starting December 8th. And then lastly, just a repeat of what Jennifer said. Jennifer, thank you so much for bringing this issue up. And I'm so glad that we have this $2 million of additional funding assistance for those who live or work in Tempe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cubie. Councilmember Arenado Savage.
Right on. Thank you, Mayor. Just got a couple things I just want to go through really quick. I think I got a couple slides here. I'll go with whichever one comes up first. But while I'm waiting for those to come up, I just want to say, wow, what a year. I think Vice Mayor Keating said it best. Hopefully 2021 is better than 2020. And I just want to say, you know, what an amazing, resilient community that we have and getting through these challenges this year. But also what an outstanding and amazing staff we have here in the city of Tempe. You know, we wouldn't be where we are without you. So I just want to take the time to say thank you to everyone that makes this community tick. And you know, it's been just amazing ride working with everyone. So thank you guys for what you do. So just a couple things. There's a great partnership here with Career Ready Tempe and College Connect. If you can see on Wednesday, they are doing a virtual great careers and how to prepare for them right here on Wednesday, December 9th, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So chime in if you can. You can learn a little bit about, you know, how to prepare for a career and some of those businesses that are going to be hiring, and get yourself ready to find a really great job or possibly a paid internship through Career Ready over the summer. So if you're a high school student or you know somebody that may have some time over the summer and is looking to earn some extra cash and learn a little bit about some working experience, this is a great way to do it through Career Ready Tempe. So thank you for that. And secondly, I want to just take a quick second to thank somebody that has been really instrumental in the city of Tempe. And you know, I've had just really great work with David Lucier and what we've been doing to really support our veterans in our community. I think the mayor will remember, actually, Mr. Lucier was a part of our original working group when we talked about what can the city do to really help our veterans. And so he was really very helpful with laying down our original foundation to become the very first veteran supportive city in the state of Arizona, to be a business supportive employer, to get the Veterans Commission off the ground, and he has served 2 terms on the Veterans Commission, and I couldn't be more grateful for his input and support. He's just really been a great, valuable asset. Being an Army veteran himself, he definitely has a lot of experiences to share and a great passion to ensuring that all of our veterans are taken care of in this community. So, Mr. Lucier, I just want to say thank you for everything that you have done. You've been a great champion for all the needs of our veterans within our community, and I'm very grateful for that. So with that, that's all I got, Mayor. Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Arenado Savage. Just a very quick thing on my end. First of all, I wanted to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season, given this is our last regular council meeting for this calendar year. And secondly, just wanted to thank everyone so much for the outpouring of support surrounding the Hometown for All initiative, talking about ways to develop sort of the next generation of affordable and workforce housing in our community. One thing I'm really excited about in coming back to council is the fact that I have an opportunity to work with 6 members of this council who are so incredibly passionate and supportive of affordable housing, and making sure that we not only retain the diversity, frankly, that makes us the city that we are, but that we also therefore maintain a housing diversity in our community. And I couldn't think of 6 people that are better to work with than, frankly, the members of the Tempe City Council, from the work that they did, the work that we did, together when I was on council for 8 years, to the work that was done during the time that I was off council in terms of, the creation of the housing affiliate. I mean, honestly, it's an exceptional group of people who I know absolutely care about the future of our community and making sure that people can live here regardless of their income, regardless of their occupation, regardless of their background. Tempe is truly a city for all to live, work, play, and raise a family. And so just very excited about how positive the rollout of that initiative was. I know it's going to be in front of the entire council on January 14th. But just wanted to say I'm just so excited to be able to roll this out, but frankly, to have 6 incredible people in this entire city council to support affordable housing and continue to push this issue and this initiative forward. So thank you so much. Next up here, we have public appearances. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone under public appearances?
Yes, Mayor, we do. We have 5 speakers. It looks like a couple might have dropped off the line, but the first on the list is Laura Mills.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So again, my name's Laura Mills, and I've lived at 2124 East Broadmoor Drive for the past 34 years, having moved in when my daughter was 10 months old, and I graduated from ASU. My daughter went to Curry, Conley, McClintock, and also graduated ASU. And I've lived here continuously except for 2 periods, 2 years each, one to go to grad school, to become a PA, and one period of 2 years to travel for PA work. During that time, my daughter continued to live in the house. And during that time, we admit that my watering became, or her watering and mine became little less than it should have, and some of my vegetation suffered, the most of which was my pine tree. In fact, this summer, because of the less monsoon, I noticed my tree was really having distress, so I contacted a tree watering specialist, and she thought with good deep watering intense that I could bring it back, and in fact it was starting to help. But about that same time, I received a notice from the city of Tempe that said I needed to have the tree removed. I reluctantly did have the tree cut down on October 24th, but asked the tree service to leave the 8-foot trunk with plans to have sculpture made. I was inspired by seeing all the fabulous tree sculptures in Galveston, Texas about 2010, because much of the city's trees were destroyed by Hurricane Ike in 2008, and I wanted something similar to that to help me remember my fabulous tree. I found a local sculptor, Barry Frank, who's been doing these sculptures for 18 years. And in fact, he did that big peace sign that you can see on College and Palmcroft, and he did that from a dead tree. But before I could have this completed, I received another notice from the city that said that I had to have the tree stump removed, and that all of the cuttings that remained on from around the tree. Well, there were no remaining cuttings because they'd cleaned that up very well. And I find it odd that I have been targeted for this when the inspector, who's obviously been to my house twice, had to pass at least 4 dead trees along Broadway. And I've talked to all my neighbors, and none of them wanted to see my tree cut down. And I asked Mr. Frank about carving sculptures from trees trunks, and he said that he's never been told by any city that the trunk had to be removed before the sculptures were done. And I would think in this day and age of climate change and more weather extremes that we as homeowners would be encouraged to make art out of destruction. Well, I've been given another 3-week extension by the city, but I hope that it won't be necessary for me to remove the trunk and that you guys will allow me to have the sculpture that I'm planning with the trunk intact. I don't know what the next process would be, but hopefully you'll allow me to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Really appreciate it. Just wanted to let you know that Chad Weaver, our Community Development Director, will be in touch with you to see if there's something we can do on that front. So he will definitely make sure to touch base. All right. Next up, Brian Fellows is our next speaker.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor, I'm
Yes, sir.
Brian Fellows. I'm the Tempe Transportation Commission Chair. I'd like to read a letter from the commission to the council, if I may.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
The subject is the City of Tempe Speed Limit Study request to agendize for public comment. The City of Tempe Citizens Transportation Commission requests that the Tempe City Council revisit the speed limit study recently conducted by the City Engineering and Transportation Department and take substantive action to improve the safety of Tempe streets by voting in favor of the hybrid alternative detailed below. The purpose of this effort is to save lives of Tempe residents and other visitors by reducing and ultimately eliminating serious injuries and deaths on roadways. In 2019, the Tempe City Council unanimously approved of Vision Zero, a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries while increasing safe, healthy, equitable mobility for all. The premise behind Vision Zero is that traffic deaths are preventable and that cities have the capability to reduce and to prevent them. Related to this, the Engineering and Transportation Department conducted a speed limit study in 2019 and early 2020, which included a robust public engagement process. The 3 alternatives proposed by the study for public and later for council consideration were Alternative A, to change speed limits citywide, Alternative B, to change speed limits in the northern portion of the city, north of baseline, and Alternative C, to change speed limits in only high school areas. The public engagement process garnered 233 unduplicated comments. The Tempe Transportation Commission examined all of the comments and categorized them as follows. There were 88 out of 233 that were clearly in favor of reducing speed limits. That's 37.8%. There were 71 out of 233 comments that were opposed to reducing speed limits. That's 30.5%. However, a significant additional number of respondents wrote comments with conditions under which they felt speed limit reductions could succeed. These conditional response comments can be categorized into several themes as follows. Reduce speed limits only north of Baseline Road. Reduce speed limits but not south of Baseline Road. Reduce speed limits only in school zones. Reduce speed limits only at intersections. And reduce speed limits but not in the whole city. In total, there were 33 of these conditional responses, which, when added to the 88 in favor responses, yields a 51.9% positive response rate. At the June 4, 2020 issue review session, a majority of the council seemed to express a preference for Alternative C. The Transportation Commission feels that Alternative C is the least effective of all the alternatives and will exclude dozens of areas across the city that the city's Vision Zero dashboard identifies as high crash areas. These are areas where pedestrians and cyclists are being struck, injured, or killed as they attempt to travel to neighborhood destinations, including schools, public parks, senior centers, community centers, residential neighborhoods, major intersections, and public transit stops. One research-proven fact that was not emphasized to council is that getting vehicles from point A to point B in a timely manner depends not only on speed limits, but a lot on the timing or synchronizing of the red and green lights, the signals. The city is fully capable of setting the timing of traffic signals in this way. What this means is that vehicles on a street that has a lower speed limit and synchronized signals often can reach their destination in the same amount of time or even faster compared to that same street if it had a higher speed limit but did not have synchronized signals. The hybrid alternative is as follows. In order to improve the safety of Tempe's streets and create positive, long-lasting change, the Tempe Transportation Commission proposes a hybrid alternative. That is, reduce speed limits as detailed in existing Alternative B, the north of baseline alternative, as well as in 2 or 3 high crash corridors south of Baseline Road. These additional locations would be determined by engineering and transportation staff and would require approximately 6 months for them to verify. The Commission respectfully requests your approval of this alternative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fellows. Appreciate it. All right, next up we have Kendon Young. Is Kendon on the line?
Yes, he is, sir, and I just unmuted him.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Go ahead, Kendon. You are unmuted. Go right ahead. He just messaged me saying that he is having some technical difficulties. Kendon, check your settings for your mic and speakers.
While we're waiting on over here, Madam Clerk, do you have any other cards you need to read into the record?
I do have a couple. They were signed up to speak, but they seem to have dropped off, and they do have a little commentary I'll read.
Okay.
First was from Mindy Martindale. Mindy is resident of Tempe, and she writes, personally, I wish the apartment rent wasn't so high. I'm barely making rent, and it's $1,500 a month. I can't get any more rental assistance. The rent should be 35 cents per square feet if in severe poverty, up to $1 per square foot up for middle class. My rent should be $1,000 a month at maximum. That was Mindy. And then have we got Kendon yet, or I have one more card?
Let's do the other card quickly then. Oh, Kendon's here? Okay, Kendon, go ahead.
Apologies for the technical difficulties, and thank you for your patience. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to address you this evening. I virtually come before you today on behalf of the Sustainability Commission as their chair to bring a deeply troubling concern to your attention. It has been 5 years and 5 months since the Sustainability Commission was established to research, advise, and recommend this council on policies and programs that advance sustainability in Tempe. And we have been doing just that. However, we feel the realization of this vision for Tempe is falling short. We have noticed a pattern demonstrated over the past 5 years by this government. The major themes that have emerged include a lack of sustainability culture among city operations and little regard to this commission's effort and voice carried among both staff and council. While this may have been acceptable in the beginning, we must evolve past this. As such, the Sustainability Commission calls for 5 actions from this council that we believe will solve our immediate concerns with regards to the Commission's voice and put Tempe back on track in our collective pursuit of creating a sustainable tomorrow for future generations. I will note that I am very excited to see that Ken's budget presentation about prioritizing the acceleration of sustainability and climate action solutions, as well as how sustainability showed up in the Clark Park presentation, demonstrates that we are on the cusp of where we need to be. With that said, the challenges of the past and the 5 actions we are calling for our future can be seen in great detail in the Memorandum of Understanding that I submitted on behalf of the Commission through the Council Communicator on December 1st. And I encourage any of you that haven't yet to please read the letter at your earliest convenience. When we came here today, came before you today, we came in the spirit of progress as passionate advocates and as dedicated Tempe citizens, but most importantly, to remind you of the call to action you proclaimed 5.5 years ago. So thank you for your time, and thank you for commenting on this particular concern earlier in the work study group. That is all.
Thank you, Kendon. Really appreciate it. Madam Clerk, you have one more letter.
Yes, Mayor, I have one more, and the submitter actually submitted it for a consent agenda item, but since it wasn't a public hearing item, we didn't have an opportunity to hear from them earlier. It was Jerry Bessler with Signify Lighting, and just so you know, this card has also been passed on to procurement. He writes, Signify Lighting USA quoted 3 options to the RFP 21-055 through 4 Arizona distributors with full comparative information and details as required. We've been trying to get details of the bid results and the selection process, but have been advised there was no determination made. Therefore, seeing this notice of award is very concerning. I have requested the information from the City of Tempe Procurement Office, but told it was not available yet, and hoping our 3 options were considered before the selection process was completed. So I did forward this to Michael Green so he can answer any concerns. And that's it, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. That concludes the regular council meeting agenda at 10:14 p.m. Let's see if we can try to at least get through a few other items here on this work study before shutting this down. So if they don't want to take a break, you just want to keep plowing forward.
Let's keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going. All right. I'm good. Let me just pull the agenda up here. All right. The question is, are we ready to go, or do we need to take any time to switch anything over?
Hold on just 1 minute, Mayor.
Okay, sounds good.
Mayor, while we're holding on, can I say something real quick?
Yes, you can, Councilmember Garland.
Carla, thank you so much for all the reading that you just did. I'm so impressed. Thank you very much.